I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 7 o'clock on October 12th. Also just want to say a special welcome we're back in person in council chambers, and it's really great to see everybody in real life, IRL. It's all good. So we'll start by discussing any items added to the agenda. Does anybody have items to add? Okay, Deputy Warden.
Yvonne from DOJ, we're just waiting for Stephen on.
Okay. Yep. Deputy Warden, go ahead.
So, Madam Warden,
And he's just calling. Hi, Stephen. Good. Are you having trouble logging in? Yeah, we're logged in. We're just waiting for you. Yes. Yes, launch meeting.
Okay, my apologies, just a few technical difficulties. All right, Deputy Warden, you had an item to add to the agenda?
So I do. I have a couple. Actually, one that just come in. Just an announcement, I guess, concerning. I guess not going to say youth hockey, but young hockey. They're just asking if we can make an announcement.
Okay.
I also have. I'd just like to add the security and monitoring of our website.
Okay.
And I guess last, I would like to add the possibly just a review of the wellness policy.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to need to ask for unanimous consent to have those items. Yes. Do you mean security? Sorry, the website edition. Security or securing or website security? Is that
Correct.
What you mean? Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll have to ask for unanimous consent for each one of those items individually. So at this point, I'll seek consent from councillors for the hockey announcement addition to the agenda. Please say aye. Aye. Okay. So that can be added. The next item was security and monitoring of the website as an agenda item. Could I have unanimous consent from councillors if you agree? Aye. Okay, I think we have that. And wellness policy review. I'd be seeking consent from councillors to add that as well. Aye. Okay. So we have those three items. Are there any other items? Okay, so hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda as amended, please. Don't forget to press your little buttons. Go ahead, Councillor Sampson.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder on that?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. So any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, so that motion is carried. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the review of the minutes from September 13th, 2021. Those minutes were circulated in advance in your council packages. So at this time, if there are no errors or omissions in the minutes, could I please have a motion to approve those minutes? Councillor Sampson?
I move the approval of the minutes of the September 13th Committee of the Whole meeting.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a seconder on that? Councillor Sampson?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Councillors Sampson. Any further discussion?
Question?
All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Those opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. All right, so that brings us to the presentation part of the evening. So we've got a few folks with us virtually as well as in person. And I think we'll begin with our presentation from the Department of Justice, from Donna Jewers, RCMP Liaison, and Haley Crichton, Acting Executive Director, Public Safety, Security Division, Stephen Ong, Director of Contracts, Department of Justice, regarding the RCMP policing contract here in Richmond County. So I'll hand it over to our folks from the Department of Justice. I'm assuming they can hear us prompting them. Yvonne, are we? Can you guys hear us? Okay, great.
Perfect, Yvonne.
Okay, we're ready for you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen. I'm the Director of Contracts. I'm with Haley and Donna. I believe you know them already. If not, they can introduce themselves. Okay. I'll start with the presentation. The municipality of the County of Richmond. This is a financial overview of the cost billing as well as the process wherein we're gonna explain the process wherein how we calculate and how we go about with the determination of the per officer cost as well as the billing for each municipality. So we can switch into the next screen. Who has control of the next screen? Okay, so this is the agenda for the presentation. Will be the annual planning overview, as well as the RCMP cost per officer, and then the Richmond detachment organizational chart, which would explain how the RCMP cost billing, because it's on a per member basis, and then there'll be discussions or questions later on. So we can move to the next slide, please. So in this slide, as you can see, it begins with the multi-year financial plan that is submitted to Department of Justice. Each year it's submitted on June 1st. However, this year it was submitted on June 14 because of the delay in it. And then usually we provide an approval in principle to the RCMPH division. However, this year we just provided an acknowledgement letter because we haven't reviewed all of the costs, the proposed costs yet. So we provided an acknowledgement letter of receipt indicating that we received the multi-year financial plan. And then what we usually do is that we review all of the finance and public safety will review the business cases as well as the status quo funding. The business cases are the incremental costs or utilization pressures specific to a unit, while the status quo funding are just utilization pressures at large or per cost category like salaries, vehicles, and whatnot. And then once we have reviewed them and discussed this with public safety, we would then prepare our analysis. However, during our analysis, we send out questions and we have discussions and meetings with each division, as well as with legal and with other subject matter experts if needed. And then we prepare our annual budget template for discussion with senior management. It includes the ADM, the deputy minister, the minister, and if it's satisfactory to senior management, then we submit the reviewed budget request to Treasury and Policy Board. This is usually in November. And by this week, by the end of this week, we would be receiving the budget memo for this year, indicating that we would have a 3-week process to finalize the budget request that will be submitted to Treasury and Policy Board. With that budget request, it does not only include the RCMP requests, but also all other requests of justice, including corrections, accessibility, courts, and whatnot. And then once we submit it to Treasury and Policy Board, they review it not only on its own like the RCMP, they review it not just for justice, but the whole of all departments, including education, health, DCS, or community services, and prioritize it within government's key priorities. Whatever the mandate and ministerial priorities they have, they would align it and prioritize it, because government only has a limited resources, so they discuss it and review it, and then they would also give us questions. And sometimes we would go back and reach out to each division for questions that we have not anticipated during our analysis and review. And then we send out the notice of expected increase, usually it's around December or January, based on the approved budget request. When they say approved, that was submitted, my apologies, submitted budget request. Okay. Now, once those budget requests has been approved by Treasury and Policy Board, assuming everything has been approved, and usually it's around March or April when we approve it, Treasury and Policy Board gives us a list of approvals, and then we update our systems, our what you call SAP system, And then we send back the approved SAP system so that they could prepare the estimate book. And the estimate book is presented in the House. Once it is approved in the House, after 3 readings, and it's also sent to the Lieutenant Governor General for royal assent, then it is used as the basis for preparing the RCMP preparing the budget letters that are sent to municipalities. We also inform the H division. So this is the whole process, and usually it's around March or April. And then that's the final notice of annual costs. So if you have no questions in this slide, we could move to the next slide. And then the per officer cost. This is the 2021-22 per officer cost. This was the cost per each officer that was approved in last year's budget process, and it itemizes the different types of costs like salaries, accommodation, lease accommodation, divisional, and all of these are what we do here. The first process is we grab last year's per officer cost, and then we add all of the incremental costs per each cost category, which are then submitted, as I said before, submitted to Treasury and Policy Board after our senior management has analyzed and reviewed and agreed to our recommendation. And once it has been approved, then this will be the basis for the cost per each municipality. And as you all know, each municipality is costed on a per officer. And technically, usually the costing here is around, the feds share around 30%, and the municipalities along with the province shares around 70%. Are there any questions for this slide? If not, we can go to the next one. I would ask my colleague Donna to to be able to explain this slide.
Certainly. Thank you, Stephen, and good evening, everyone, to Municipality of Richmond Council. It's really nice to be here with you this evening. I hope you can hear me okay. I also want to mention on the call here this evening, we have your infamous detachment commander, Sergeant Ed Nugent, is there. Hopefully you can see him there. So if any questions on this slide, I'm sure it's going to be Sergeant Nugent will be able to answer it, since he's the one on the ground there with you all. So this is the org chart currently for Richmond County. So the district itself, it's comprised of 11 regular members. The municipality of Richmond pays for 9 of these regular members, and the Politech First Nation funds 2 of these regular members. And those 2 regular members you see over there on the right-hand side in orange, they are funded through a community tripartite agreement. And that agreement is between the province and Public Safety Canada. So that's separate from the Provincial Police Service agreement from the 9 regular members that you pay for. At the top is your detachment commander, Sergeant Nugent, and he oversees operations throughout the entire district. So he directly supervises 2 corporals, and each of those corporals supervises 4 constables. And I'm sure you are aware that there are 2 RCMP detachments in your area, the community of St. Peter's and the community of Eritchat. And each of those detachments has a detachment services assistant. There's just one other point I will make here. Due to the geography of the area, there is a small portion of Richmond County that includes Point Tupper. It lies directly south of the town of Port Hawkesbury in Inverness County. So due to its close proximity to Port Hawkesbury detachment, that portion is policed by Inverness County regular members. So as a result, they are credited 0.5 of a regular member, and Richmond County pays an additional 0.5 regular members. So the total is actually 9.5 regular members that you are billed. So do you have any questions on this slide? No? Back over to you, Stephen.
Okay, thanks, Donna. So based on taking it from Donna, there are 9.5 members, including the portion that Richmond shares from the Inverness one. That is, so shares a portion of it from Inverness, the 0.05. So we have a total of 9.5 members multiplied by the cost per member of 160,400, which came from the earlier slide. We have a subtotal of 1.5 million, and with shared services, there's also 101,934 shared services. These shared services pertains to OCC, which is the Operational Communication Center, which is the center which intake and dispatch of 911 calls, as well as the for RCMP policing programs, as well as shared costs for NCO advisory services, which provides advisory service to all police units. And this also based on the number of members. And then the total billable would be 1.6 million. So if you have no questions, we can move to the next slide, which is total questions. So, yeah. I leave to the floor if there are any questions with billing or with the operation side with Sergeant Nugent or with the organizational chart with Donna.
I know there are questions.
Yes, there definitely are. I'm just still getting used to my.
I also want to mention, Stephen mentioned our colleague Haley Crichton is on the line. So Haley, you see there, she is the acting executive director for Public Safety and Security Division, who is responsible for policing in the province. So feel free to ask her any questions at all about policing in your area or in the province.
All right, I think Councillor Melanie Sampson has a question.
I do. I have a question in regards to the number of members.
I'll put it out as well, that if there's anybody who has a question that isn't comfortable in asking it in this forum, to please feel free to contact myself or Donna as well privately, and we'll be happy to answer the question that way as well.
So Melanie, if you want to.
That goes for me as well. You folks know how to get a hold of me. You can call me at the office. I'll be in all week or at any point.
So Councillor Melanie, if you want to state your question, and maybe Yvonne, you could repeat it to them, just because I think they're picking up on your mic. Is that?
Can you guys hear anybody else speaking in the room?
No,
Okay. Does that make
No.
sense? Can we
do
read
they
the
have a
question?
mic, Yvonne?
Someone's gonna talk right now. Let me know if you hear them, Donna.
So this is Councillor
No,
Melanie
we can't
Sampson.
hear.
Are you hearing me,
Can't
Donna?
hear anything?
No.
So if you want to just relay it.
It's a pretty quick one. So my question is simply, how do
Is
they
there a way to
determine the
bring
number of members per county?
equipment to them?
I'm gonna ask the question. She's gonna relay it to me,
Okay,
if that's okay. Yeah.
sure.
So just curious how they come up with the number of members.
She's just, Councillor Melanie Sampson is wondering how you come up with the number of members.
With the number of members, as Sion said, it was in the organization chart. There are 9 members, and then there's a portion of or 0.5 of it because of the share in the portion that the Inverness County is policing. So there is a credit to them and a what you call an additional to Richmond County. So it's 9.5. And and then I can give the floor to Donna to explain the org chart again to further explain it so that we can know how the 9 members were determined.
Thanks, Stephen. I think, is the question more or less, how did Richmond County perhaps come up with 9 regular members or 11 regular members way back when, like to begin with? I think, is that the question?
Yeah, that's it, Donna.
Yeah. It would have been probably a long time ago. I don't know when it actually started. I don't know if any of you know. It probably was a long time ago before any type of policing review has happened in Richmond to determine if the appropriate number of regular members are policing your district.
I don't know exactly when that establishment was determined. I do know that establishment is reviewed every few years, and I believe I saw an email about it this spring that essentially said that there weren't any, major changes that were likely to happen. You know, we could make requests, sort of thing. I think that was actually happening. Darrell McMullen might have been handling that, my predecessor, just as I got here last fall or in the summer maybe, and I was copied on some emails. Essentially, he kind of put out feelers to see if the establishment could be changed, and was told it was highly unlikely, and I don't think he made an attempt. And in all honesty, I'm pretty happy with the establishment we've got here. I don't think that we're under strength by any means, and it seems appropriate to me at least.
Thanks, sir. Yvonne, I will just mention that through your council that at any time that they do want to have any kind of a review or a discussion about that, please reach out to me, because it is your council that determines the number of regular members that are policing your district. So anytime there is an increase, a decrease, or status quo, it is up to your council to vote on that. So feel free to let them reach out to me directly if they would like more information on that.
All right, thank you. Thanks for that question, Councillor Melanie, and for the
Just
answer.
to see if there's any more questions.
Are there any other questions from councillors? Okay, I'm not, oh, sorry, Deputy Warden.
Can we just bring back up the slide with the expenses on it for a minute, please, Yvonne?
Okay, so I'm just gonna bring back up the slide with the expenses. Someone else has a question, Deputy Warden Bacon.
Yep, that's the one. So I guess it's a two-part question. The first one is what's the direct and indirect cost of 11,000 per member? And yeah, let's go with that one.
What's the direct and indirect cost of
$11,090.
the $11,090 for the direct and indirect?
The direct and indirect are for HQ and severance, liquidation, major capital accelerated program, training kit, clothing, relocation, also includes cadet training, recruiting, legal services, and human resources, etc.
Okay. And the overtime, that's...
Yvonne, did you want us to send you that by email? Were you able to capture that clearly?
They can hear all your answers very clearly.
Okay, good.
There's just another question.
Just in the overtime, it works out to be almost $102,000 per year. Would it be more beneficial to have an extra full-time officer as opposed to overtime?
The question is that the overtime works out to $102,000 per year, and they're wondering if it would be more beneficial to have an extra officer full-time.
With respect to the overtime, when we calculate for each detachment, we don't calculate it on a per detachment. We'll calculate it on the total pooled resources, or what you call police resources at the beginning of the year, and then we calculate the overtime as well as the vacancy to determine the per officer cost. So, with your request, we could, if you do request for an extra officer, you could coordinate that with Donna, and then we could do the paperwork to address that, to add that officer. However, anything within that 12-month period is locked in, because when we calculate overtime as well as number of officers per each unit, it goes to we cost it not on a per detachment. We cost all detachments and all the number of regular members, then we divide it by to get the per officer cost before we multiply it each again to each municipality or town. So we do and it's in accordance with the system that is in compliance with the PPSA agreement. That's how we calculate it. We just follow whatever is in the agreement. It's an all-in costing before we do denominator, which is the number of regular members, and then we multiply again each member according to a detachment. The reason for this is so that for general purposes, we also cost people who are under the MPSA or Municipal Police Service Agreement some costs, such as the OCC and the police advisory. Even though they are under the PPSA, we charge them also for those costs. So it's not just for all municipalities under PPSA, we also cost some under the MPSA. That's why we don't do that on a per detachment, we do it overall, and then before we do a denominator. So yeah, that is the short answer for that. If we're gonna increase the number of detachment regular members, we can coordinate it for the next fiscal year. It cannot happen within 6 months or at least 1 year, because of course the 12-month notice, as well as the pushing through the requests through the system.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So I'm looking at our clock here, and we do have another presentation, so unless
So
there's a...
Yvonne, is council happy with policing services in Richmond?
Yeah, I mean, I would think, this was definitely, this presentation wasn't because of, we had concerns, but it was more or less a learning exercise for us. I think we probably could have used a little more time on it, but we can do a follow-up maybe, so.
Yep, they are good for now.
Okay. All right, perfect. Thanks a lot for facilitating that,
So we have another
Yvonne.
presentation, so I don't know if you could hear the warden, but she's just saying that, she's just thanking you for, your presentation, and, maybe we could do a follow-up in the future.
Sure, anytime, and perhaps next time we can come down there in person and meet you all.
Yeah,
Go
that
out for
would be
coffee.
great. That would be great. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks a
Thank
lot.
you, bye-bye.
And thanks, Yvonne, for
Thank you.
facilitating that. Okay, so next item
I
on our...
assume you don't have anything further for me then either, Yvonne?
Nope, we're good, thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
See
Ed.
now. Thanks. Bye,
Bye-bye.
folks.
Bye.
All right. So our next agenda item is another presentation from Property Valuation Services. So welcome to you both. Thank you for joining us here in Chambers. As you can see, we still have the odd technical difficulty on the virtual side when we're in person, so it's really great that you're able to be here in person. This is regarding assessment and PID matching. But I'll maybe just turn the floor over to you, Lloyd, and you guys can introduce yourselves, and yeah, and we'll go from there.
Okay. My name's Lloyd McLeod. I'm the Senior Valuation Manager for Property Valuation Services. I work out of the Sydney office, been with assessment for 38 years. This is Dave Penny. Dave is the actual manager in our Sydney office. And that office does all of Cape Breton. So thanks very much for giving us the opportunity to come here. A couple of years since I've been here, and definitely new faces around the table. So we think it's a good opportunity. If you could hear me. Yeah, so we thought it's when we do presentations to council, especially when we haven't been before a certain council before, because if there's a lot of new council faces, it's good to have a little conversation about who PVSE is and what it is that we do. So I'll talk a little bit about PVSE. I'll give you a little snapshot of what your assessment role is going to look like for next year, come January when we send the notices. We'll talk about the PID and account match pilot project that we did this summer, and then we can be open for discussions. So for PVSE, our governance, we were established in 2007 as an independent not-for-profit corporation. So before that, we were part of municipal affairs. We were a provincial department. Leading up to 2007, before 2007, a few years before that, I believe, the province transferred the cost of assessment to all the municipalities in Nova Scotia, and you all share to pay for the service. So once that happened a few years later, the municipalities felt that they wanted more say in the assessment since they were paying for it. So that was kind of what started the ball rolling and moving assessment out of the provincial government and into an independent not-for-profit corporation. So we are governed by a board of directors. We have representation from different municipalities across Nova Scotia, and we also have some representation from the private sector. Our budget from the municipalities is roughly 17 million a year. We've actually been working from, our staff have actually been, most of them have been working from home since 2018. We have 120 staff in 62 communities across the province. So when I first started working here, we had an office upstairs in the courthouse. We had an office in Port Hawkesbury, we had an office in Port Hood, and we had an office in Bedeck, and so those are just the offices we had around here. I think we had 15 offices across the province. But since we started, we reduced the number of offices we have, and people are now working from home. It's actually worked out quite good for us. Well, luckily, we were probably a year ahead of COVID, or 2 years ahead of COVID when we started. But the other thing is that we had a lot of people that were traveling. So we had assessors that were living in Ayrshire and traveling to Port Hawkesbury. We had assessors living in Port Hood. They were traveling into Port Hawkesbury in the winter every day, back and forth, right? So the nice thing about it now, if you have a question or ratepayer calls, we can, if we can't solve the issue on the phone, we have, as I say, 62 communities where our assessors live. So they can go see the people, right? And people don't have to be traveling in winter and all these different things. Of course, and the other obvious thing is that it definitely cut costs for us in terms of renting office space throughout the province. We still do have an office in Sydney. The office has been closed since COVID started. And when the office reopens, we actually only have a few people that work in the office, and there are people that chose not to work at home. So people were given the option. So the province's role with us is that they hold the pen. They write the legislation. So we're governed by the Assessment Act. So everything we do, we have to do according to the Assessment Act. They have the power to change that. They have the power to make properties exempt. We don't have that power. So one of the examples is the capped assessment program. So we manage the capped assessment program, but it's actually a provincial program. So when we get questions on it, we can answer questions as to who's eligible, who's not eligible, but in terms of, anything outside that legislation, it's not our legislation, so we can't change it, I guess, is the big thing. So our mandate is to assess all properties in Nova Scotia at market value. So right now we have roughly over 630,000 properties in Nova Scotia, and we do the revaluation on those properties on a yearly basis. We administer the cap and the Seasonal Tourist Business Designation Program on behalf of Nova Scotia government. So seasonal, I'm not sure if you're aware what the Seasonal Tourist Business Designation is, but that provides a tax base to certain tourist businesses such as hotels and motels that are closed 4 months of the year. So the hotel, motel owners that fall under that, they have to apply for that on a yearly basis. And they have to apply, I believe it's by September 30th. So some of the things that we can't do, but people think we can't do, we get lots of calls on this, as you get calls on assessments, we get calls on tax rates, of course. And we don't set tax rates. So that's a responsibility of the municipality, and I don't have to tell you that because you all know it. Another thing we don't do is we don't create PIDs and we don't create accounts. The province does that under the land registry. We don't collect property taxes, we don't create tax policy, and we don't provide tax relief. So under the Assessment Act, as I said, Section 42 states that we are required to assess property at market value. And that's just simply the opinion of the assessor, what would be paid if it were sold on a prescribed date by the director in the open market by a willing seller to a willing buyer. So for 2021, the base date is January 1, 2000. Or 2020, right? So, so some people will, so the sales that we look at to determine that would be sales that occurred during the year 2019, because we look at a full year's sales. I'll just give you a brief, like to determine market value, it's not on the screen, but we use 3 approaches to value, and that's standard for any appraisal of any type property. We use the cost approach. Cost approach is most times used on special purpose properties, large industrial properties. We use the sales approach, which we look at all the sales that would occur in Arishat, for example. We divide this municipality up into what we call neighborhoods, and so that we don't compare the sales that occurred in Arishat with the sales that occurred in St. Peter's. They're separate neighborhoods. So that's how we go about determining. The other thing is the last approach we use is an income approach, and that's typically used on shopping centers, apartment buildings over 4 units, hotels, motels, and office buildings. Okay, so some key dates for your 2022 assessment roll, which will be delivered in December to the municipality, and notices will be mailed in January. So as I said, we collect the sales and investigate sales throughout the year. So from January of 2020 to the end of 2020. During 2021, right now is we're out doing permits, and we're looking at the physical state of a property. So some people get a little bit confused about the difference between, we talk base date, we talk state date. So even though the base date of your property may be 2020, what the state refers to is if you did something physically to change that property. That allows us to pick new construction up at the end of this year and add it on for next year. So when the assessment notice comes out in January, it'll actually, the base date, the value will represent what your property was worth as of January 1, 2021. Okay? So that doesn't mean that we ignore if you put an addition on in July, because that's where the state date comes in. We would add Just as a note, the 2022 assessment values, this will be the first reassessment where we will see an impact from COVID. So a lot of people, particularly more so on the commercial side, but expected to get a break for 2021 because, for instance, some hotels had to shut down, for instance, right? Who would ever thought the Prince George in Halifax would actually shut down? The problem is that the base date was January 1, so it was before COVID. So they'll get any change they get in their assessment as a result of COVID will be actually 2022. Confusing. Okay, your 2022, as I say, we can give you a little update of what we think it's going to look like. As I said, we're at this point, we're still talking to major stakeholders. We're still out doing permits across the province. I think our permits are up across the province this year. Your own are probably up, I wouldn't be surprised. We get about 14,000 to 15,000 permits this year. So all of our assessors at this time are out every day doing permits. And as I said, this will be the first year that COVID will play a role in the valuation. So in Richmond, when we looked at the market increase, what we're seeing on the residential file is a 3.5% increase. This is overall, right? So that does not mean everybody's house goes up 3.5%. This is an overall for the municipality. So as I said, properties are broken down by neighborhoods. So individual neighborhoods, depending on what the market was doing in that particular neighborhood, could move slightly up or down from that. So, I mean, you may have a ratepayer that'll come to you in January and say, my property went up 5%, and I heard, Richmond was only going up 3.5. Overall, Richmond is going up 3.5. So some may be a little higher, some could be lower, but and right now the cap is floating around 4%. So, as I say, that's not the province will determine that. We don't play a role in that, and I believe they'll look right till the end of November.
November, yeah.
Yeah, November is, and then they'll. But right now, we've been looking at the last couple of months, and you're around 4%.
So I'm just going to interrupt you for 1 minute. I'm keeping an eye on our clock here, so we may need to kind of wrap things up. Because I know there's going to be questions for you.
Yeah, okay, you know what, I have a commercial, I was just going to give you a provincial, what's happening commercially. I can tell you that just that overall general, our industrial file across the province is really strong because of COVID. Offices they're stable, but we have, because most places, even though people weren't going to work there, they had long-term leases. So they still paid their leases. Retail is down, but retail has been going down even before COVID because of online shopping, and those things were happening. Nursing, retirement homes, fairly stable. So the largest impact that we're seeing from COVID is on the hotel motel sector. So we are seeing about a 15 to 25% drop on those type properties for 22. Okay, the PID account match pilot project. So after speaking with the municipality and the concerns around the PID and account match, we undertook in June to do a pilot project. We funded that ourselves. Even though it is really a Nova Scotia Land Registry responsibility. We were lucky enough to be able to hire somebody for a couple of months, Joyce Forgeron, who we were really lucky to get because she's an experienced mapper, and the best part, she's from here. So she knew the area. And I'd say we assess the values for registered properties on the assessment roll. So all three parties, the land registry agreed to look at the properties that she identified. We hired her. There was potentially about 1,300 properties that she was looking at. What she found was really complicated by the lack of historical documentation on a lot of these properties. 562 of them were provincially owned, so those properties are already assessed. They may not have separate PIDs for every account, but one of the reasons that is because when the province migrated their properties, they did it in one batch, not like they require you and I to do. So she did find 280 PIDs that needed new accounts. She has sent them off to the land registry because they have to create the accounts. They'll review them. They have to create them. 90 of them they have approved and sent back to us, okay? The other 190 are still waiting for land approval. Out of those 90, only 18 could she find mailing addresses for. So that means those other properties are going to go in as owner unknown or with a name and no address. So the chance of collecting any taxes on that is very minimum, right? You are going to have to, I mean, they'd probably eventually go for a tax sale. Of the 18, let's go back, I guess, that we valued, the average, the 18 properties that we had addresses for totaled $85,000. Worked out to $4,500 per account, assessment. The others will have to wait till land registry sends them back to us. But from my conversations with Joyce, she doesn't feel that, you know, it is going to be of much value to the municipality because of the process that you will have to go through. Once those accounts are created, they're going to show up in your assessment roll as owner unknown or no address. So I know Mr. Marchand can tell you, like, the process that has to go through, you know, if you want to try to put them on a tax sale. You would have to do, before they could ever be put on a tax sale, you'd have to pay to have all those titles searched. And most of the lots, according to the mapper, are very small and what she felt would be of little value to the municipality. But as they come, they'll put them on, we'll value them. So I'll leave it open for any questions you might have. And we'll do our best to see if we can come up with an answer for it.
All right, perfect. So I'm sure we've got some questions, councillors. I know I have one submitted from a constituent in advance of the meeting, but I'll open for councillors to get started if you like. Okay, who am I hitting there? Councillor Sean Sampson.
Yeah, so first off, Lloyd and Dave, thanks for coming, and thanks for the pilot project. So I guess my question would be, first off, is the pilot project still ongoing, or is that done? Is Joyce still?
No, Joyce is finished now,
Okay,
but all the information she has was sent to land.
okay. All right, the reason I asked is that at 1,300 minus the 562, minus the 290.
Yeah.
We're still got 450 something.
But those are ones she can't find,
Okay,
right? She's saying you might find a name from 100 years ago.
right,
But there's no way to trace that name
Right.
from there.
okay,
Who are the descendants?
Right.
Who should get a tax bill?
Right.
She indicates, she thinks some of them are actually duplicates.
Okay.
Right, that they're already assessed.
okay. And just a second question is, you mentioned it was good to have Joyce work for you guys because she's from the area. Out of your 62 staff members, who would be the closest, or what would be the closest to us in our municipality when it comes to a mapper or an access?
Well, we don't have any mappers,
Okay,
right?
but,
All we have is valuators.
Right.
Who would live the closest here?
The closest here would be probably Charlene McPhail. She lives,
Wyckoggam, is it?
around the Wyckoggam area.
Okay.
Closer to the Port Hawkesbury side.
Right, okay,
In that general area.
Yep. okay, perfect. Yep, thanks very much, guys, thank you.
All right, maybe, okay, Deputy Warden, you had a question? Okay, so a question I had asked from a constituent was, she had been looking at the Viewpoint as well as property online and noticed that there's a big difference in the valuations for waterfront property between the two systems. And is that related to, I know you talked about the 3 approaches that you would take, is that related to different approaches taken in valuation, that type of thing?
She was looking at Viewpoint, so that would be a listing.
Yes, yeah.
So we only look at sales,
Okay,
not listings, right?
Okay.
So, like, some people want a lot for their properties, right? The other thing you have to keep in mind is the Bay State. Like right around now, like we've seen an increase in, well, I mean, water has been going up for a number of years, but certainly since COVID, it's been going up more. So that same property, you have to realize what's on the assessment roll is actually a year old, for one. But I would say the biggest thing is that she's looking at comparing a listing to an assessment.
yeah, okay,
So we wouldn't review that, it could be listed for 100,000 and we have it on for 70 and it eventually sells for 80.
right,
So what we try to do is look at all the sales in that area, and if they're all now selling for 80, then we would bump our 70 to 80.
okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah. Now, what we won't do, or we try not to do, is if we only have one sale in an area that's a lot higher than others, is we may not change it for the next year until we get more evidence. Because we don't like to base our decisions on one sale, right?
Great, okay. Okay, are there any other, thank you for that. Deputy Warden, you had a question?
Good evening, gentlemen. Yeah, I have several actually, but I will try to make them as quick as possible. So I guess I started the ball rolling on this whole ordeal, and thank you for, I guess getting Joyce involved. And I do have some issues though with the numbers. I guess one of them that was brought to my attention is 2 pieces of property side by side, one being a 5-acre lot, the other being, let's say, a 10-acre lot, and the 10-acre lot is actually assessed lower than the 5-acre lot, both of them side by side. So, and that's theoretically throughout the whole county of Richmond. Again, I'm not sure if that comes, down to the assessor or how that works when he goes and makes his rounds, but that is definitely one of the things that we've been seeing. One of the second things is I'm not sure. I guess my question would be, if there's a PID number already exists, then where does it fall, or on whose lap does it fall to take that ball and proceed to get the tax paid for that property? Because I personally found over several hundred PID properties that I researched, and 0 taxes are being paid on them,
So you found PIDs, not account numbers,
correct?
right?
So
So
I took that PID number,
So the people that created the PID, the mappers that created the PID, do not have enough confidence in the information they found on that property to create an account, so that we would value it for a tax bill. That's what that tells me.
so I contacted a gentleman that has 26 PID numbers on 26 different properties, pieces of property, has not been billed yet through the county of Richmond, and there's no assessment on his properties.
He has 26 PIDs,
Yep,
so.
on 26 different parcels of property within Richmond County,
Right,
and has not paid taxes on any of
so
them.
would that have been a subdivision that?
Nope.
A past subdivision?
Nope.
I mean, I'd have to look.
And I'm just,
Yeah.
again, it's only scenarios that I
Yeah.
ran across all the way through,
Yeah.
but that being one of them, so, when I seen the number 18 as the address for only 85,000, I find that very low, considering I have at least 20 or 25 on my list of people, some that I know personally, that do not pay property taxes.
Well, I mean, if you want to give us the 25 PIDs, I'll have them investigate it. I mean, it's the same as, your first question about how can one property that has 10 acres and another have 5, and the one with 10 is assessed for less than the one at 5. Certainly, when we do valuation, we're looking for consistency in our valuation. So, if we knew about that, we would check that, right? There's different possibilities, and maybe you know the property, I don't. But maybe I go to, we drove, I'll tell you an interesting story that happened this morning. So, Dave and I are looking at some of these PIDs that were created. So, I looked at it on a map yesterday, and I said, wow, look at that lot, she's found that lot, that's on the Breton Lakes, right? So it was an account that she added, and I said, that's gotta be worth a lot of money. That's a nice waterfront lot. Well, guess what, Dave? It's just on our way up we went to St. Mary's today, so we come up this road. I don't know what I would place no value on that lot.
It looks great
Okay.
on a map.
It looks great on a map, but I would say there's nothing you could do with that piece of land. The highway's here, the piece of land is down here, it's half flooded with water, there's a large brook ravine runs through it, so it looked good on a map. But, and I drove by, these are the things, right?
So I
The
guess.
thing I'd caution you about hoping to get things added on that when they're not, haven't been thoroughly checked out from land is, we recently had a situation in Inverness, and the councillor called me, where an older couple had 3 lots deleted. They found they were duplicates, okay? So she called me and asked me how they could get their money back, because they pay taxes on it. Well, unfortunately, they can't.
So just so I'm clear, they were paying taxes 3 times each year?
On lots that were duplicates, that's right.
Okay, I think that's kind of like the opposite of the problem that we were, you know what I mean? I understand your perspective
I'm
there,
just
but,
saying, right, you
yeah.
just gotta be careful
yeah,
what you do with stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
If it's not thoroughly investigated.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I mean, the mapper that we hired to look at these properties, in her opinion, they weren't valid enough to put on these other ones. There wasn't enough information, right? And the impact wasn't going to be substantial. So she has a lot more experience in that than I do. I mean, I have lots of experience in valuation properties, but, we don't have title searchers and mappers, right?
Yeah. So I am gonna have to cut us off there. We're at 8 o'clock, and we've still got a full agenda ahead of us. And you know, if any other councillors have questions, or Deputy Warden, if you wanted to submit a list of properties, you know, I definitely encourage you to do that if you had serious concerns about them. But I do need to cut us off there. I really, really appreciate you both taking the time to come and speak with us this evening. I think this has been extremely helpful. I know that, I know that it was an undertaking for you guys to take on the pilot project, and we'd appreciate that investment, because I think it is something that certainly councillors and constituents were wondering about, and want to make sure that there's fairness in our approach as we go forward. So thank you very much for your time.
Welcome.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll be in touch down the road.
Yep. And like I said, if you have questions, and if you have some properties, individual ones you want checked out, I mean, we'll do our best.
Yeah, I'll forward them to the CA.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Yeah,
CFO, and he can forward them on to you.
yeah.
that's great.
Leave some business cards here too.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, and nice to meet you both.
Nice meeting you.
Dave, all right.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye now. Bye.
All right, bye-bye. Okay, so I'm going to move us on to the next item on our agenda, and it is J-Class roads. So this item is reappearing on our agenda because the discussion that we had at a special council meeting on October 4th resulted in a motion that will need to be amended. Clarification on eligibility of the kind of work to be done was not provided during the discussion, so the original list of 9 roads that we discussed at that meeting cannot be submitted. Ditching and gravel work were not eligible under this particular J-Class road program. We'll continue to advocate for that work through other channels. I think, I'm sure we all will be doing that. But this program is restricted to upgrading current roads by paving, repaving, or double chipping. Marchand Lane had been identified for repaving, so that does remain eligible. Interest had been expressed also, I think, by Councillor Sean Sampson to explore the costs of paving Lobster Plant Road in Cape Auguste, and by Councillor Brent Sampson to pave Sampson's Road in West Lordways. Was there, that was from email conversations once we realized that the eligibility wasn't going to cover all of the original 9. So I guess at this point, I'd be looking for a motion to amend the motion that was adopted at the October 4th, 2021 special council meeting. Or is there, to include those 3 roads, or are there additional comments by councillors? Councillor Melanie Sampson.
Thank you. So after we did have that email conversation, I thought a little bit more about Langley Lane, because it does back onto an already paved section. It's actually quite short. And it probably is a road that if we would do some paving to it would last forever because of, the type of traffic. It would be completely residential. So given that we're not committed to any of these roads, once we get our estimates back, I would respectfully ask that maybe we can add that one to the list as well, because it is in particularly poor shape and has waited a very long time for some work.
Okay, thank you. So yes, you had mentioned certainly the condition of Langley Lane being somewhat atrocious, so. Okay, any other comments from councillors? All right, so I'm not hearing any, so I would be looking for a motion to amend the motion adopted at the October 4th, 2021 special council meeting, that a list be submitted by staff to the Department of Public Works as per the requirements, and the list of 1 to 9 was included in your package, and replacing it with the following list. That would include Marchand Lane, Lewisdale, for repaving, Lobster Plant Road, Cape Auguste, for culverts and new pavement, Sampson's Road in West Lordways for culverts and new pavement, and Langley Lane in Point Upper for culverts and new pavement. Any comments from councillors? Go ahead,
No,
councillor.
I'd be willing to make that motion.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that has been moved by Councillor Brent Sampson to amend that motion as stated. Councillor Sean Sampson?
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Okay. Okay, is there any further discussion?
Question?
Okay, so all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. And I do want to just at this time Just give a reminder to the public that this program doesn't apply to all roads. A J-class road is a very specific type of road. There's, I think, just over 60 of them in Richmond County. They are considered local roads constructed prior to April 1st, 1995, under the administration and control of the Department of Public Works in order to be eligible for this program. And that cost sharing, that the program is a cost sharing of 50%. And as I mentioned, I'm sure we'll all be continuing to advocate for good, better road maintenance throughout the district in other ways, so throughout the county in other ways as well. So, okay. Thanks very much, everyone. So, next item on our agenda are a few items we have from the CAO. First is regarding appointment of commissioner regarding private ways. So, Don, maybe over to you.
Yep. So, in regards to our private ways bylaw, we recently received an application from a taxpayer who wanted to take advantage of the Private Ways Act, or Private Ways bylaw that we created. I spoke to John Bain, who we had discussions during the creation of the bylaw that we would use, potentially try to use him as that commissioner. So I spoke to him, and his concern is that he would prefer to have his appointment approved through council. So it would be just as simple as making a motion to approve John Bain as the commissioner for this particular application, and that we would require the the appointment of the commissioner on each application.
Okay. Thanks, Don. Any, Councilor Brent Sampson?
Yeah, I'd be willing to make that motion.
Okay. So the motion is to appoint John Bain as the commissioner for the private ways for the application currently filed.
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Melanie Sampson?
I would second that motion.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion?
Question?
All right, so all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, so that motion is carried. And
So further to the request of council regarding funding for a Strait of Canso Gateway project, I discussed it with our CFO, Jason, and we feel confident that we'd be able to accommodate a funding amount of $5,000 if that was, I believe that was the amount that was discussed at the last meeting.
that's right.
So if you wanted to make a motion in that regard, we could certainly accommodate that funding request.
Okay, thank you, Don. Any questions from councilors? Councilor Melanie Sampson?
No question, just happy that we're able to fit it in there. I figured we would, but thought it was best to check. So if there are no other questions, I'd be prepared to make a motion that we support it. I believe the funding request was 5,000.
That's right.
Yeah.
Up to 5,000.
Yeah,
Could be
that's right.
less.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I just wanted to add one thing to that as well, that I would suggest that we make it in, we will provide the funding contingent on the other municipalities following suit. So we wouldn't want to be the only one providing the funding. I'm sure the other
Yeah.
municipalities involved will be honorable and provide funding, so just that would be just a safeguard on our part.
Yeah, so I do know that there was confirmed funding from, I think when we originally brought this to the last meeting, there had been confirmed funding from a number of sources. I'd had to go back and check, and then verbal commitments from several councils as well. Would you be suggesting, Don, that we would have, so which how many municipalities? I just worry about going down that road if other municipalities on board, which ones? You know what I mean? And would we expect them all to be?
In case there was,
Oh, sorry,
yeah,
Councilor Brent Sampson.
I think I know what you're thinking. In case there was one that didn't, it
Right.
wouldn't necessarily affect my decision, but we wouldn't want to be the only one that did,
Right.
obviously, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So what's been the process, I think, for that in the past? Would we want to know that the majority of municipalities on Cape Breton Island would be supportive of it? Although there is also First Nations potential contribution there as well, so.
What we've done in the past is we have provided those stipulations, and we didn't restrict them to amounts. We just, if they decided that they wanted to contribute, then we would as well, and it was our choice as to the amount of funding that we wanted to contribute.
Okay. Deputy Warden?
Yeah, so I guess I I'm willing to second the motion, but then at the same hand, I'm willing to accept Don's proposal that, you know, we don't want to be the only guy standing there with the check in our hand, more or less. So I'm sure by our last meeting that we had, there were several that were already contributing. So I don't think this is going to be an issue. But again, it's good just to put it out there.
Okay. So Councillor Melanie Sampson, I think you were ready to make that motion to fund up to $5,000. And would you be okay with adding contingent on the support of other municipalities? We don't need to specify how many.
Yes, that's fine, as long as it doesn't say all of them.
Yeah.
You know, I think a majority of the ones requested would be
Okay.
fine.
Okay, great, thank you. So the motion is on the table. Could I have a seconder on that? Okay, thanks, Deputy Warden. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. Back to you, Don.
Our next item is West Richmond Education Center, final capital plan. I know I recall providing you a timeline. I thought it was going to be at the end of this month, but we actually got it a little early. Didn't have a lot of time to look at it because we did get it, as you can see, the letter is dated October 6th. So the first letter is from the consultants who did the report. They're just providing us with a little bit of background as to some of the projects that they endeavored over the last several years, and I guess they're just trying to provide you with some information to say that they've done this before, and that, you know, that they're familiar with this type of evaluation. The plan itself is quite lengthy. It's certainly something that, you know, it would take some time to go over if you wanted to peruse it. However, I mean, it could be something that we could discuss at the council meeting if that's an option. But right now, like I say, it was provided just recently, so I felt it necessary to provide it to you folks, and we can decide what we want to do at the council meeting, or review it for now and then discuss it in further depth at the next council meeting.
Would councillors be okay with that approach? I know I certainly haven't gotten a chance to go through the whole thing in detail, so Councillor Brent Sampson?
Yeah, my only other thought would be, I don't know if it would make sense at some point, even if there was other things on the agenda for a special meeting for that, just because that might chew up a bit of time to really, it's a pretty large decision, and there might be a little bit of discussion involved as to, you know, where we want to go with this. So I wouldn't want to see it in the middle of a meeting where we're backlogged with other things on the agenda. That I hope it just gets the time it would require.
That's a great point, Councillor Brent Sampson. Councillor Melanie Sampson?
Yeah, I did have a chance to review it, because I didn't know how far we'd get to talk about it today, so I wanted to make sure I was prepared, but I would certainly welcome more time to look through it again. And I've talked to a couple of folks in the district who are particularly kind of attached to some ideas, and just sort of gave them some idea of what was in the report, but I'd like to have an opportunity to kind of share it with some of the key people who've discussed it with me, for sure, as I suspect other councillors have had similar concerns from residents in their district about that asset. So and I like the idea of a special meeting, like I said, even if there was something else. I also like the idea of you know, it being part of our strategic planning discussions, because, you know, what could come out of our strategic planning is that we would have a requirement to use a building like this to do something, or not, right? And then we would declare it a surplus and move from there. But I think just giving us a little bit of time to digest it and perhaps use it as part of other discussions would be useful.
Okay, great points. Any other questions or comments on that? Councillor Sean Sampson?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Councillor Sampson said. I mean, I went over it myself. I was never so happy to see photos at the end of it, because
It's lengthy.
I was going through some pages and numbers there, and I was like, I was never so glad to see some pictures. But yeah, no, I think like the councillors mentioned, I think it needs more time to be discussed, and you know, so yeah, I would welcome
Okay.
a special meeting for that discussion for sure.
All right, so maybe we could look at a special meeting maybe later in the month to discuss it. Would 2 weeks, like maybe 2 to 3 weeks, give folks enough time to, because I appreciate there's some consultation you may want to do in your community as well, right? Councillor Melanie?
And I would think that that meeting, like any of our meetings, would be open to the public in some fashion, whether that's by Zoom or whether it's, you know, depending on what the restrictions are, because
Yeah.
I feel like there may be some folks who may want to come and just speak on what's happened in the past or what they envision or.
Sure, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, oh, that's great, great point. Okay, so rather than try to land on a date for that right now, why don't we just ask staff to maybe look at a 3-weekish sort of time period? It'll get us past our next regular council meeting, give us time to kind of consult with some folks in community, and then we'll establish a date from there. Does that make sense? Okay, is that okay with you, Don? Is
Yeah.
that, yeah? Okay, great. All right, so,
Okay, so
back to you.
the next issue, I'm not sure how this came up. I think it may have been just, was that something that you had?
Yeah, so there
Finish
had been correspondence from, and which I'm not gonna be able to drag up on my
Yeah.
screen here, but correspondence regarding our successful application under that program.
Yeah, so we just recently filled out the application for the 50% funding of that project, because it is complete, and all we are now is waiting. And of course, it was a project that was approved by council, and all we're waiting for now is the funds to come in for the province's portion.
So the study itself has been completed.
Yes, it's been done.
Okay. Any questions for Don on that? All right, thank you for the update on that. Okay, so next items on the agenda, I had a few that I had added. Essentially, we'll start with the Acting Collectively opportunity. This is a research project that is led by Dalhousie University to pilot an innovative approach to gathering data on the needs of and available resources for community living older adults to age well in communities. The project is focused very much on aging well in communities, and from the webinar that I participated in, they had a strong interest in ensuring that a rural region was part of their study group. And, you know, I think that given that seniors make up a large percentage of the population in Richmond County, it might be an excellent information that we could consider going forward. You know, I'm thinking everything from our rec department to the work that we do with Seniors Take Action Coalition, as well as even our strategic planning exercise that's coming up. There could be some valuable supplemental information. It's an evidence-based approach called Age Care Technology. So ACT. The ACT is a set of integrated tools. It assesses the needs of older adults and provides them with an individualized report linked to a list of related community resources, but it also has aggregate type of data that they present at the more community level to help policymakers and planners identify common areas of concern and maybe gaps in resources that need to be filled. The team at Dalhousie will trial the ACT in 2 Nova Scotian communities to answer a series of research questions, and the results will inform Nova Scotia Health, Wellness Planning and Programming, as well as the Department of Seniors and Long-Term Care on age-friendly initiatives and what community resources might be needed and are available and might be needed in the future. So a member of the Seniors Take Action Coalition, Dorothy Bernard, has indicated that she'd be willing to help us with an application if council was interested in pursuing to be one of the 2 communities in Nova Scotia who would be interested in participating in the study. So I wanted to kind of get council's opinion on that, if you feel it's something that we could be pursuing. So any thoughts? Councillor Melanie Sampson?
So do we have any sense what the municipality's responsibility would be in terms of, like, from what I understand, financially none, but time-wise, what that would look like? Do we have any sense of that at all?
So from the webinar, it didn't sound like there would be much of a time commitment from the applicant group because they have researchers to collect this data and present the data. So, I mean, it is a research project. It's not that they're implementing a program, which is something I would be like way more concerned about from that perspective. But certainly it's a good question and maybe one that we could do a little extra digging on. Councilor Melanie?
Me again, sorry. I mean, I think based on what I've read and what I've heard from you, you know, it certainly sounds like an obvious choice for us with so many seniors in our in our county, with Dorothy offering to help with the application, you know, if that, like, if the CAO feels that that's appropriate, I would thank her very much for doing that. It's very helpful of her. And I do think that it could help us too. You know, I think that we can pretty much assume that through our strategic planning, we're gonna be asked to really consider our senior population. And I think that this would give us a really great way to figure out how that could work and what exactly seniors are looking for without necessarily us reaching out to them, you know, individually, as we go through that process. Anyway, that's sort of a long way to say I would support us, you know, asking Dorothy to help us with this, and if it wouldn't require great time from the staff, that we should definitely do it.
Yeah, and I'm forgetting, I'm having a brain cramp on the deadline, but it is, I think it's November 1st. It's coming up. I would, I guess, ask counselors to keep in mind too, this is an application to participate in a study, and if you know, we find there's some scope creep that would require lots of effort that we can't supply, you know, we're not obligated to participate just because we've applied. So I guess I'd be looking for a motion from council then, if there's general agreement, to apply to the Acting Collectively program with the support of the Seniors Take Action Coalition. Oh, Deputy Warden.
Yeah, I would make that motion that we apply to the Acting Collectively agreement.
Thank you. Councillor Brent Sampson?
I'll second that.
Okay, thanks. Any further discussion?
Question?
Okay, so all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. So the next item on the agenda, and I guess I'll follow back up with Dorothy, just since she and I had been speaking about it, and we'll get the ball rolling on that. So next item on the agenda is department and committee reporting, and I think on and off I've had individual conversations with folks about this. Just interested in hearing from councillors right now on potentially having a more formalized and regular approach to either department or committee reporting. You know, I guess the questions I would have is it needed? What format could it take? How could it be delivered? I'm not really interested in placing a lot of extra onerous requirements on staff when they're busy doing their work, but at the same time, I think, you know, it might be nice to have some sort of regular type of reporting that we would bring through council so the public hears it as well, because I mean, we all talk, you know what I mean, but just from a public perspective. And then alternatively, committees, you know, especially when we appoint members of the public to sit on committees, how do we make sure that that line of communication stays strong with us? So I'd like to open it for discussion with councillors to see your thoughts on that. Quiet room. Councillor Sean.
Yeah, no, for me, Madam Warden, I agree with you. I mean, when it comes to committees and policies and bylaws and you know, everything that these committees are doing, you know, there's nothing wrong with making sure that there's reports out there for the public. Consultation and transparency when it comes to all these committees and what's being agreed upon and what's voted on and all this stuff. No, I'd welcome that for sure, yes.
Okay. I'd kind of like to hear from staff on this, Dawn, you know, or any of the other staff members present this evening, if you have any thoughts you wanted to share on this and how we might make it work well, but not be super onerous either.
Right. Well, the committees that there are committees, of course, that are always attended by the public. So I mean, our audit committee is attended by the public. It's open, so they have the opportunity to attend. The bylaw policy committee meetings, the public is welcome to attend. So it would be a lot of extra work, and our current meetings, our current committee of the whole meetings, and our current council meetings are usually 2 pages of items. So I mean, to go ahead and start talking about committee reporting, you know, how in-depth would you want to be? How in-depth would you want to get? What kind of a report would you want to get from? I mean, are we talking every committee, like PAC? Are we talking EDPC? Are we talking all these committees that all the councillors sit on? I don't know if that's really necessary. If there was a few certain committees that you wanted to get updates on. I'm not really sure how that would, in the form of a email or what have you, but to discuss it at council, I mean, like those committees are public, so people are able to attend, so. I don't, that's just my thought on some of the committees. As far as departmental, updates, same thing. I mean, we would have department updates on a what, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, I don't know. It certainly would fill up the agendas as well. The public, or sorry, councillors are welcome to call me at any time to get an update on what's going on in a particular department, and I can update them, and then if there's any concerns that any of the public have, they can relay that message to them and discuss it with them by email or by phone or however they feel necessary to relay that information.
Councillor Melanie? Thanks, Dawn.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, Dawn. I would agree. Like, if we would do something like that, we would need to have a bit of a schedule. Like, some of the other, like, just an idea of some other committees that I would sit on, or boards that would have, like, subcommittees or have departments, is basically we would just get a report from the CAO. You know, it depends, every 2 months typically, and it would be, like, super basic stuff. So it would just sort of say, you know, HR, you know, added staff, subtract staff, whatever it is, you know, in your case, you know, Public Works, you know, that the study is complete, or just really basic stuff, just so that you'd have a general idea. That we don't discuss them at our meetings. They are just simply circulated, like, on a timely basis, you know, like I said, every 2 months. By the middle of the second month, you just get an email that just sort of says, this is what's going on. And we could do the same thing for committees. And it could be as simple as, like, the committee hasn't met in 2 months, or the committee has met and the minutes are available if you want to see them, or whatever. And I don't know that we need to talk about them in chambers, like, because again, I think that it just would take way too much time. And we'd be talking about, well, we all know how to read, so we can read it. And then if there's something that we want to discuss or we have questions, right, then we could reach out to you, Dawn, for some clarification. And if we feel like it needs to come to council based on what we're seeing, well, then that's the thing to bring. So I do like the idea, because I feel like sometimes a lot of time spreads between meetings or between updates of things, and we maybe miss some important pieces. So I agree. I definitely don't want to make it a ton of work. I think a real point form, easy, is, like I said, could just be, you know, the committee hasn't met. It could be quarterly too. Like, I don't feel like it needs to be, you know, every month for sure. I don't feel like that's necessary, but, you know, every couple of months or every 3 months or whatever would be probably fine.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Melanie. Deputy Warden?
Yeah, I agree. It would be nice to get something quarterly. However, I also agree with our CAO that we are putting a little bit of extra work on all the staff, and at the same time, we're saying, you know, basic. So what's basic to me might not be basic to you, and we're not really giving him, I guess, a guidance to go by. So I think we got to do it one way or the other. We either got to give him, you know, a guideline to follow that we're all okay with, or we have to, at the end of the day, whatever he presents us with, then we have to accept. Otherwise, you know, we're just.
Yeah, I think too that the point you're making about extra work, it's not potentially not just going to impact staff, but we have volunteers who we appoint to committees on our behalf, and I wouldn't want to, you know, create a situation for them that they would find onerous, but at the same time, would really like to know what's going on with you know, Destination Cape Breton or a service or a Superport Corporation or whichever, you know. So, and I know we can reach out and call anytime, but I really do think there's a value in having some of that information public as well. So I'm wondering if perhaps we could establish a smaller group to kind of look at what our committees are right now and the different types that we have, ones that are council only, obvious, and staff only, that maybe that would be treated differently than, you know, ones where we have appointments, that type of thing. Just a thought. Deputy Warden?
Yeah, so I guess my thought would it be fair to maybe for each councillor that's sitting on a board or on a committee to provide the CAO with a little bit of feedback of where we're at and what we're doing, and then as for in-house, then he could provide the feedback to us and to the rest of the residents of Richmond County. If that's what you mean with that, I guess that's the only way I can you know, I guess I'm on the Recreation Committee, so I can provide the CAO, or I guess provide Laurier with the information he can provide Don, and then he can give a little summary, or, you know, quarterly or monthly or whatever I guess we'd agree on.
Okay. So it sounds like we have a little bit of work or maybe thinking to do about it. Would folks, do you guys, so I guess we have a couple of options. I mean, I wouldn't want to jump into a solution right now because I feel like it's still a little bit amorphous, but we can either just take this away and think about it for a bit and then maybe bring the discussion back to a future agenda, or would you like to maybe try to establish a small team to look at what's best? I'm okay with, I mean, obviously either way, I'd just like to get some instruction from council. Councilor Brent Sampson?
Yeah, I'm thinking we got quite a bit coming up going on, like this fall specifically, so I have no problem with tabling it for now and looking at it again in the future maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. And I kind of was on the understanding if something major comes up with some of these that there, you know, it would be sort of reported back, or we may have times where there may be a presentation if necessary in that.
Sure, yeah.
I know some of them we sit on though, it would be maybe good to get an update, but sometimes there's really not much.
There's no update, yeah. No, that's a great point. Okay, Deputy Ward?
Yeah, so I guess my last point to that would be, I kind of like Councillor Sampson. The only thing I would add is maybe we could, on the intern, just kind of do our own thing and start gathering information so that when we do decide to implement it, we're not already 6 months or so behind the 8 ball. We'll already have, you know, it's not a push to get it done now, but at the same time, we don't want to wait 6 months to implement it, that we got to wait another 6 months to put it in action.
Yeah, okay. All right, so I guess the suggestion is to just maybe table this for now, revisit it at some time in the not too near but not too far future. That okay with folks? All right, so I don't think we need a motion to that effect. We'll, but thank you for the discussion. It is, I think it had great value, so. The next item on the agenda then is the vaccination policy. So I wanted to add this item to the agenda because I've been seeing many municipal councils have a conversation on mandatory vaccine policies for employees. I know certainly the government of Nova Scotia has set an example of adopting such a policy, and Nova Scotia Public Health continues to call for people to get vaccinated. So I really just wanted to bring this for discussion at Municipal Council because of what the discussions that I've been seeing going on in the news in other areas. I know recently Halifax, I think council did adopt a mandatory vaccination policy, but on the other hand, I think CBRM has chosen not to. So there's all sides of the equation on this, and just wanted to open it for discussion and thoughts from councillors. So maybe I'll just do a quick round the room because I'm not seeing my buttons light up here, but maybe Councillor Brent Sampson, I could ask if you had any thoughts on that or if you wanted to comment.
Yeah, I read today something about Inverness County, I think, was doing a bit of I think staff was doing a bit of an anonymous survey within the employees, amongst the employees, try and get a bit of a better sense. Yeah, I know what you mean. I see it both ways. I think it's something we'd have to consult our lawyer for, but it's definitely a discussion we have to have.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Brent. Councillor Melanie?
I would be inclined to lean in the direction of Councillor Brent, but I think a lot of organizations have not gone to the mandatory vaccination, but rather to the, I call it like modified mandatory. So where if you have if you're fully vaccinated, then you just proceed as if normal, and then if you're not fully vaccinated, then you would just need to submit to routine testing to ensure the safety, and I tend to like that approach. I'm personally not interested in forcing anybody to become vaccinated, but I am also wanting to make sure that everybody is safe, particularly our public-facing employees.
Right.
So I would be inclined to, I call that a modified mandatory or whatever the term is for that, but that would be my inclination.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sean Sampson?
Yeah. I would go in that direction as well. I mean, when you say the word mandatory, you know, you're kind of walking a fine line there, and you know, so for me, the modified approach, like Councillor Melanie said, you know, if you're double vaccinated and you have proof of that, then that's okay, and if not, then you have to go through the motions and the steps to make sure that you stay safe and the rest of the public stay safe as well, right? So, but again, I think that's a conversation we have to have with our solicitor and maybe a policy committee meeting and discuss it further, right?
Okay. Deputy Warden, did you have any thoughts you wanted to share on that?
No, I guess the only thought I have would be, you know, probably follow the, we really, we're under the thumb of the provincial government anyway, so if they're going to implement the policies, they're only going to allow municipal to go so far or so long before they decide to make it mandatory for whoever they're going to make it mandatory for. So now, currently I'm kind of like Councillor Melanie Sampson. I'm not inclined to try and force anybody to do something they don't want to do. However, we do have to respect the safety of the public or anybody else around, so I'm okay with it either way.
All right. So Donna, obviously want to offer you the opportunity to comment. You know, I know we had maybe an informal discussion about it way early days though. I think Councillor Melanie had another comment as well. So
I just wondered if perhaps you had commentary of your own on the topic?
Yeah, so so yes, I would definitely not be in favor of, you know, absolute mandatory type of policy. I think that's you know, that gets very punitive. But I am concerned about the, you know, the health and safety of the people who, like you said, Councillor Melanie, are public facing employees. And so I'm wondering, my feeling is that we should have a bylaw and policy committee sooner rather than later. We have a whole list of bylaws and policies we need to get through, and the list is getting lengthy. So, I'm thinking we should convene one soon to have that discussion at that level. But again, sorry, Don, I would like to hear your comments on it as well.
Sure, and I would agree, having a discussion on vaccination policy at the policy bylaw meeting would be appropriate. There are many things to consider, obviously, when you're talking about vaccination of municipal employees, and one thing that I think about is you have the arena where the workers at the arena don't have to be vaccinated based on provincial laws. Then you have water operators that are essential services, so you certainly can't tell them that they can't come to work because they're going to take care of our water supply. So I would think that, and of course other municipal unions are going to weigh in as well as time progresses. One thing we could do is possibly work on a draft vaccination policy and prepare it, staff prepare it and provide it to council for their review, and then, you know, in time for the next policy bylaw meeting.
Okay, thank you, Don. So if council would agree to refer this to policy and bylaw and have staff begin work on a draft, okay, could I get a motion to that effect? Councillor Sean Sampson?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Seconder, please.
I'll second that.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Brent Sampson. Any further discussion?
Question?
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. All right. Thank you, everyone. So the next item on our agenda is in-person or versus virtual meetings. And so obviously this has been added to the agenda. This is our first in-person meeting in some time. And so I actually can't even remember the last time. So it's been a little while. But I did want to just check in with municipal councillors and kind of have this conversation because it does have an implication on how the public can be engaged in our meetings. So obviously our primary goal here must be to keep everyone safe, and we're all staying masked up and following the guidelines. However, when we do come in chambers, it does right now limit the number of the members of the public that we could invite to probably 6, just based on physical distancing requirements, and when you consider us being in here already along with media. You know, the other implication, and we saw it this evening, is that when we have presentations, sometimes we'll tend to run into a little more technical difficulty when we've got that hybrid approach partly in person, partly online. However, when we do the meetings electronically, it's also, for many not as accessible, although in both cases, the meetings are being aired on Till. So there's a lot of sort of public engagement things that I think we need to consider. And I just, rather than have this discussion every time, I'm wondering if councillors have an opinion, should we continue with in-person for the time being, watch the COVID numbers, and then go back to virtual? Right now, under the emergency measure, or the state of emergency, we do have the ability to do virtual meetings. We could do every other. So there's all kinds of options on the table for us, but I would like to hear from councillors your thoughts on that. Deputy Warden?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been for an in-person, possibly because I'm probably the one with the most electronic difficulty of all. Every time we happen to log in, so this way here, all I have to do is reach over and have Yvonne fix my mic or adjust my computer. So I'm definitely, a vote for the in-person. And honestly, I find that we seem to be able to, I guess, look around the room and have a better feel of, or better atmosphere as we hold council, as opposed to, through a computer screen.
Yeah, certainly from a chairing perspective, it's nice for me to be able to see you guys and trying to figure out who's next. Councillor Brent Sampson?
Yeah, I'd have to tend to agree, although I do miss the travel from the spare room to the hallway. There's a lot less chance of technical difficulties here. The atmosphere, you're right. I think if we can, this is a better system.
Okay. All right, thank you. Councillor Melanie Sampson, did you have any thoughts you wanted to share on that?
I'm really fine either way. I do, the hybrid approach is more challenging, I think, than fully virtual or fully face-to-face. I think the challenge we have with being fully face-to-face is that we may have presenters who are not comfortable attending, and I would like to respect that. Mm-hmm. So we may just need to accept that sometimes we're going to have technical difficulties as we continue with a hybrid approach. I feel like as long as there's a need to have reduced numbers and masks, if I was to tell you my preference would be virtual, because that way more people can be actively involved in the meeting through Zoom, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit easier as well for us to communicate, I think, without masks. So, I'm glad that we met today. We had talked about coming back together when we hit phase 5, and we've done that. So, right now I'm hearing two people are looking more for face-to-face. I can go with that if Sean and yourself agree. It doesn't matter. But if I'm casting a vote, mine would be for virtual.
Okay, thank you. I know exactly what you mean about the masks. You'll have noticed my quick costume change. I started with a cloth mask and just found myself unable to breathe and talk at the same time through it, so I've switched out, but the struggle is real for sure. Councillor Sean Sampson?
Yeah, so when Mike says he's the most least technical guy, I'm right behind Mike, so when it comes to technical, but having said that, I tend to agree with what Councillor Melanie said as well. I like the atmosphere here, and I like being face-to-face, and I like being in the chambers. I don't like trying to speak through a mask, right? So, yeah, I'm good either way.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. And I guess my preference at this point would probably be to, when I looked at the length of our agenda this evening, I was really glad that we were getting together in person as well, because it can make for a long stretch on virtual, and so. I guess my preference would be to let's try this in person for the time being, and see how it goes. But I think I would really encourage members of the public, to reach out to your councillor and let them know that if you find that you're able to participate in this way. I think also councillors truly and staff, I would say, who attend, really be honest. If you feel that you're not comfortable doing a face-to-face meeting, if that does become a problem, then just please communicate that, and we'll do what we can to accommodate. So, okay. Great, so thanks everyone. Next item on our agenda is the Cape Breton Wren Contribution Agreement. So the Cape Breton Partnership has provided an updated intermunicipal service agreement for review. It is up for renewal now. I wasn't sure, Dawn, if you had the specific end date for it, or when, like, is there a deadline by which we would need to sign? I couldn't see it in the document.
I'm not sure. I haven't seen the document.
Okay, okay.
So I was under the impression that that was already done.
Yeah, no, it's been circulated by Carla for signature, and I know we always plan on a fiscal year basis, right? So, anyway, they're looking for the document to be signed. I think currently we contribute about 70,000 a year for that towards the Cape Breton Run. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes, okay. We do have a shared development officer with the town of Port Hawkesbury, along with access to a variety of services and supports. You know, for instance, they provide support to our Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health. They've got immigration support, strategic planning, newcomer settlement, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. You've heard the presentation. So I guess at this point, they're looking for a signature on the updated intermunicipal services agreement related to that partnership. So would like, I guess, the consent of council to go ahead and sign back on, or if you feel like more discussion is needed. Councillors? Dawn?
Is that for the 2021-2022 year?
So it is. It was in our email. Was it not included in the package? I had it through my email, so. No, okay. So it was email. I don't have enough connectivity here to get to it, but I do. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but our development officer is here this evening. Okay. Okay. So, I mean, we can find out from Carla. My understanding is there's no significant rush, so we can refer this back to our regular council meeting at the end of October when we have the specific date in mind, if folks are okay with that. Yes, sorry, yeah, it was copied to Dawn and I, so I had assumed it went in the package, but I was looking at it off my email, I'll be honest with you, so, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I got a copy of it.
Okay, well, I know,
Either way,
yeah.
it's not really
Yeah.
significant. I know that, you know, with the passing of the budget, I'm sure we're all in agreement with the
yes, exactly.
with carrying on
Yeah.
with the Cape Breton partnership for another year, as long as it's to the end of 2022.
Yeah,
Where, of course, we have an approved budget for
that's right.
that end date.
Okay, so my apologies, folks. I did think that was in the package from the email, but, oh. It is for this current fiscal. Okay, thank you. So would you guys like to make a decision now, or would you rather just refer it to the end of the month? Like I said, there's no great rush. Council?
We could make the motion. I mean,
Yeah,
nothing is official till the end. So
Exactly.
if in the interim, we could just circulate that document, and then
Yep.
we would be confident as we're passing it under
Yep.
the committee, the whole report.
Okay.
So based on that, I would make the motion that we sign that we instruct is it yourself that's signing?
Yes, yeah.
The warden to sign the CB rent contribution agreement.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Brent Sampson?
I'll second that, and that's based on where we had come to approve it during the budget process.
Yes,
So I think
exactly, yeah.
we've basically made this decision already.
Yeah, okay, great. So any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. All right, thank you, and thanks, Megan, for your quick footwork on that. I really appreciate it when my screen wouldn't load up. All right. So we have a number of items under correspondence where we have action required, and the first is a group of grant requests. So I guess at this point, the grant requests were all included in your package, along with confirmation from staff that, you know, the requirements were met. The first grant request is the Almadam iFit Center Society for $5,821.42 for a Type 4 grant under Regional Health in General. So any, I guess, comments from staff or councillors on this particular application? Deputy Warden?
Yeah, so I'm kind of torn in between both sides. I'm not sure, I guess, why what the purpose of the grant application is. Is it for,
It's for the purchase of equipment. I can't remember the exact names. I'd have to bring it up on the screen, but squatter thing.
So
Don?
maybe, I think what we did the last time, I think Jason introduced the
Yeah.
application and just briefly touched base on it. Didn't you, Jason, the last time, right? And if we could do that now, then you could probably
Yeah.
explain.
Yeah,
That's-
we've dealt with it in a number of ways, I guess, in the past, but I just have it up here, so I'll just read quickly, is that they're applying for a grant to help assist in the purchase of new equipment and replace a few pieces. We'd like to bring a new piece of equipment currently not available at the iFit Center. The reversible leg press hack squat provides a 2-in-1 piece of equipment that is highly requested by our membership. So there's just that equipment, and it looks like one or two other machines. So again, it's a purchase for equipment in the gym that they don't have, and they're asking council for money.
In a gym that they don't have?
The equipment they don't.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Equipment
okay.
that they currently don't have.
Okay, right.
In the gym.
They have the gym, okay.
The gym is there.
Okay. Counselor Brent Sampson?
Yeah, I think there was also weight sets if they had a gap right now of, like their dumbbells were, 70 to 90, there was a gap in
Yeah.
between.
Yeah.
And then also, I
Yeah.
think a rowing machine as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. All right. Counselor Melanie?
So just a couple of things that I saw, based on their financials, it looks like they're probably HST registered. Jason, did they indicate that? Because they're looking for funding, including the HST.
That's a good question.
And they're also, based on their quote, looking for us to actually fund the whole purchase. So certainly for me, as I was considering the grant request, like, I like the idea of helping them purchase new equipment. I thought we should be excluding the HST, and I also felt like perhaps a bit of a sharing might work.
Yep.
So just for other counselors to consider, because it is a fair amount of money in our little budget that we have to use.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Counselor Melanie. Any other comments? Counselor Sean Sampson?
Yeah, so like Councillor Melanie Sampson said, when it comes to sharing, thanks Melanie for using that word, sharing. But again, I'm going to go back to the Arishad Community Development Association and the Recreation Park. When you talk about the iFit Center, it's in the name, Almadam iFit Center. So I'm sure that Councillor Digdon here would agree that, when it comes to our district funds, that we would invest in this and hopefully have some investment of the capital fund to invest in this. And I agree with Councillor Melanie Sampson when it comes to the HST part of it. If we can fund most of it aside from the HST part of it, then I think that would be a good gesture. So.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Sean Sampson. A question that I guess I had is that, this is a gym, there's another gym in the county, it is a private enterprise, and I do have some concern about providing public funds, creating an unfair or competitive advantage in one place, and I will admit I'm extremely unfamiliar with iFit, and I clearly need to go in there and check it all out. Maybe I could get a tour, but I just have a little bit of a concern about that. And of course, again, to your point, Councillor Melanie, the full amount of, it's basically a request for 100% funding for a project, which I don't think is a great way to necessarily be able to leverage our funds. My whole hope for the grant program, that restoring that, was to turn that money into more money for Richmond County. But 100% funding seems high to me. So, any comments? Or I don't know if anybody would like to comment on what I've just said there. Like I said, I'm not familiar with iFit as well as I should be. Deputy Warden?
Yeah, I agree. I agree on both sides, I guess. I agree with Councillor Sean that I'm not allowed using my money for my district, but our money. We can, it is a great gym and a great facility. Again, I also agree with you that we can't start funding, I guess, small businesses, and definitely when we also have another business in our community or in our county that operates and runs under the same type of establishment. So I would be willing to do a contribution to our district fund. However, I don't feel that we can contribute to, again, the full 5,000.
Okay, thanks, Deputy Warden. And I should qualify my comments. It could be a completely separate market. I truly don't know about that competitive factor, but I did just want to mention it because we do happen to have another private one in the county. So I guess I'd be interested then in a motion of some sort if anyone is feeling that they have a proposal they'd like to submit in order to proceed with this application. Councillor Sean Sampson?
Yeah, so for me, again, I don't think the two compete, Madam Warden. I think one is a community gym and built, with the community in mind, and it's done well for Almadam. So, again, going back to the Ayrshire Community Development Association, I see that as a recreation for Almadam. So, I'd be willing to put maybe 1,000 in my district fund, and maybe if anybody else wanted to jump on board with their district fund, I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but 1,000 from mine, and maybe 1,500 from our capital fund, which is not too much.
So what, I'm not sure I understand what you mean with the capital fund. Do you mean our overall capital plan?
Yeah, capital grant money,
Okay,
yes.
so that's probably something we'd have to entertain at a later time, just because we don't have it on our capital plan right now, right? And the capital plan was approved by council.
Our general grant fund. Or
Oh,
the 35.5.
okay,
yeah,
sorry,
no, sorry,
okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, okay.
The general grant funding, yeah. Sorry.
Okay. All right, so Councillor Sean Sampson is suggesting $1,000 from his district fund, and potentially 1,500 from the general revenue, or the general health and, help me out here.
General Health
What is
Regional.
that called? Thank you. General Health and Regional Fund. Deputy Warden, you had a comment on that?
Yeah, I think, I don't know how much is left in the West Ayrshire or the District 2 fund. However, I know that I probably still have at least $500, which I can contribute to the,
Okay,
It's 32.50 left in yours.
okay.
okay. And I guess keeping in mind that, that amount of 1,505, that'd be about $3,000 towards a project of almost 6,000 that they've had quoted. Councillor Melanie Sampson.
Jason, do you think their HST register, they were asking for 5,800, but 700 of that would have been HST, right?
Yeah, I could inquire with them. I think they're definitely registered. I'm just not sure if it's half or full.
Oh, I follow what you mean.
Some
Yeah,
If it's
not-for-profits are
nonprofit, it
registered
would be
half.
50%.
Yeah.
That's generally.
yeah, okay, so I
Generally.
mean, 3, that would, so we're actually talking about, based on the numbers you guys have talked about, gentlemen have talked about, we're talking about funding more than 50% of the equipment. So I would just voice my concerns of us funding more than 50%. They have retained earnings. They have money in their account, which I recognize is, some of that they're gonna have to repay under the CEBA. But some of the CEBA money they're not gonna need to repay, cause assuming they're gonna keep that money in their account, which basically gives them, 20,000 of sort of, funded money. I can appreciate you each wanting to putting money out of your own fund, 1,500, but I do have concerns about us funding more than 50% of pieces of equipment, or like a project, if you will. So although I support doing it in principle, I'm not sure I support the numbers.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Brent Sampson?
Yeah, I think I'd also have to raise concern just with, whereas the other gym within the county is a private business, and they wouldn't necessarily be able to access these
No, that's
funds the same way. It's not, I don't want anyone to get the impression, I don't think it's a worthwhile endeavor, it's just that it gets tricky if we fund competitors, however, maybe, out of the district funds, if District 1 and 2, if they wanted to do that, but I'd also have concern with it coming out of the general fund for those reasons as well.
Okay, all right, thank you, Councillor Sampson. Deputy Warden?
So I guess my only take back on that is, I've just been informed that I had a little more money in the district fund that I was aware of. So should we not be able, I guess if we're not able to go to the well of the general fund that we were looking at, and I definitely agree with Councilor Melanie Sampson, because we agreed, I think it was a consensus of all councilors that we never wanted to go over the 50% mark when contributing. So if we're not, I guess, contributing, then I could up from my fund up to the $1,000, and Councilor Sampson was putting $1,000. So at the minimum, I guess we would be at a $2,000 on contingent with the grant fund.
Okay, so, so I'm hearing from the deputy warden that, the $1,000 from the District 1 fund and $1,000 from District 2, fund, towards the project. So if anyone would like to make a motion to that effect? Oh, sorry, Councillor Sean.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay. Seconder, please. Deputy warden?
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. So any further discussion on that? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Thanks very much. So maybe I'll hand it back over to you, Jason, if you want to give us a little update on the next item on the agenda, which is the Raising the Villages Cooperative Limited, although this is a repeat from last time.
Yeah, so my understanding is that there was no seconder on this motion at the last council meeting because there was some confusion, I guess, as to where the funds were going to come. So it wasn't really a total debate as to whether council wanted to fund. It was basically how much and where it was coming from. So it's just simply back on the agenda tonight for your discussion and any decisions.
Right, so, thank you, Jason. So this request, I think, was for $5,000, and the motion that did not receive a second was to fund $250 from each of our district funds plus $1,250 from the regional fund for a total of $2,500 in investment towards raising the villages. And I guess the question was, perhaps this shouldn't be coming from district funds. Some councillors were not comfortable with that. And so, so I guess I would ask council, do you feel that there's an amount of money from the kind of regional health and general fund that we would want to support this with? Or if some folks do have district funds they'd like to apply. So I'll just open that for discussion. Deputy Warden?
I guess I'd be inclined to go back to the people that originally, or the councilors that originally supported it, and I guess maybe ask again around the table if they're still willing to support it. I don't know if that's consensus of everybody, but usually that's how we do it. And then again, I'm okay with the same, whatever the difference may be. Then I believe we agreed to use the regional or the general grant fund. So yeah, maybe go back around the table and check who's willing to.
Okay, so, Councillor Sean Sampson, you also had a comment?
Yeah, no, I just, to go back to Deputy Warden's comments, I think the original motion was $250 from the five of us, and $1,250 for a total of $2,500, so.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm still okay with my $250, but like Deputy Warden mentioned, we can go back around the table, I guess.
So the other option, of course, and we have lots of options on the table, but it would be to say if we did want to fund to $2,500, because I don't think the amount was the problem, it was just kind of how it was allocated. We could take it fully from the Regional Health and General Fund, because it is something that would potentially benefit all young youth in the county. So, Councillor Sean Sampson?
Yeah, if we want to go down that road, Madam Warden, and take it all from the general fund, I'm sure that the Deputy Warden would welcome his $250 back in his district fund. But yeah, at least then the number is still the same and the funding's still the same. It's just coming all from the general fund. So yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, any other further comments or a motion that we could be making? Councillor Melanie?
So yeah, I would be okay with that. I was one of the councillors who wasn't fussy for it coming out of my district fund. So based on that, I would make the motion that we contribute $2,500 all from the general fund.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Brent Sampson?
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion?
Question?
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Thank you. Back to you, Jason, Waterway Economic Development.
Yeah, so this is a group who had applied for funding under the Type 4 Regional Health General Grant. It's a group called Waterway Economic Development, who's a limited corporation. They're seeking funds in the amount of $20,125, which again is inclusive of HST. This was an application that had originally been denied by staff. And the reason for that, through some discussions with the group, is that basically there's a clause in the policy that refers to infrastructure. And basically it says that organizations who apply for funding shall own and control the assets infrastructure in which the application applies. So we've seen this in different instances, and I guess the reason why, because of course, just to give a bit of background, this council didn't create this policy, but it is a policy of council. The notion came up with other organizations where a group didn't own the assets that they were being upgraded. So the municipality viewed it as a risk to give funding to that group, whereas potentially the assets or the property would or may not have been leased, and the group had lost control of those assets, or the assets had been pulled, or the property had been pulled. So this was just a way to try to put in some safeguards so that taxpayer money given to groups to upgrade assets, we wouldn't be able to ensure that there was potentially, a lease on the books, or that there was very low to minimal risk that we would lose that investment. So it's just a way to protect the investment. So basically we had originally denied that grant request, but through some discussions with the warden, she wanted to have it on the agenda tonight for some discussion and debate. So we've included in the package the typical memo from myself to the CAO, and also the application from the group, and then basically the email exchanges between myself and the proponent, but also between myself and the CAO and the warden. So just to be clear, basically we had denied this application based on the fact that it doesn't fit within the policy, and we had recommended that potentially if council wanted to fund this application, that it be referred to policy and bylaw to look at potentially an amendment to the policy. Or another idea was to consider this application as part of a much larger discussion when it comes to strategic planning in the fall, and basically council looking at making investments into tourism. So the other part is that the group was asking for 20,000, and there's a maximum of 10,000, I guess, under the grant category for that type of grant. So just to be clear, I did state in my email to the warden that it has nothing to do with basically us staff not thinking that it was a good project or that the project being important. We have worked on these projects before in the past through the tourism plan when it was alive, and basically we did work on this specific project as a subset post-tourism, even after that it died, I guess, basically. So we are in support of this type of project. We just feel that this is a huge project, and basically it fit better with the strategic planning discussion initiative. So if you have any questions, I'll answer them.
Yeah, and I wanted to thank staff for their diligence on this, because I think that would be a risk we would definitely want to address, and I think it's a smart clause in the policy. However, the application itself isn't for infrastructure work. It is for a conceptual redevelopment plan for the canal, boardwalk, trail, and public spaces. So the RFP and any resulting conceptual plan would be the property of Waterway Economic Development. There's no construction being proposed at this point. I think they don't know what they would be proposing because they need the plan first. And they would own that plan, like I said. And I think in order to obtain any kind of permit or lease or letter of authority of some type from Parks Canada, they would need this plan to demonstrate the value of the project. So it is a critical piece in moving forward. So the clause does but does not apply in this case, because it's not, they would own the asset that came out as a result of the work, and it wouldn't be related to construction on federal property. So I do think Jason is right on the money, though. We should potentially refer to policy and bylaw a discussion to amend our grant program to allow for those types of federal and provincial partnerships if they arise, and depending on the size, to your point, Jason, they might be better off in a strategic planning or budgeting discussion. But in the meantime, this application, it is not, like I said, the assets would still be owned by the group. The group is a not-for-profit limited company registered that way. So I guess I'd just open for discussion for councillors. Councillor Brent Sampson.
Yeah, I contacted somebody on, with the group and so on, just because I found there was, a couple of red flags just in the sense of where we weren't too sure on a lot of things. it sounds like a great project, but I think probably the best way to go forward is if, I don't know if we could prioritize somehow to have somebody come in and do a presentation for us so that somebody from the group was here to be able to answer questions. So I think we're just a little bit limited as to, you know, our knowledge of where they want to go, but from the information I did gather, it does sound like it could be a very worthwhile endeavor, and get a little bit more information as to timing. Like I wondered even whether or not, you know, we could split our contributions among between 2 fiscal years, whether or not that has an impact on them, or if that's kind of a deal breaker or not. And I think the more information we could get from a couple of representatives, maybe of the group, then it'd be a lot easier to make a decision going forward.
So in terms of timing, I do know that an ACOA application is awaiting some sort of indication of financial support from Richmond County. So the project really, at this stage of the game, does hinge on that, and so there's not really a deadline, but it is certainly it's been on the, you know, on their books for a while. So I know they'd like to proceed. I think they're probably looking at trying to get this in place before, you know, another construction season comes and goes as well, right? So, Councillor or Deputy Warden, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Warden, for all the info on this. And again, I reached out to many of the members that are on this board, and it is getting time sensitive. It's already been pushed back once. I agree, maybe you know, an in-person discussion would help. However, they did send a pretty detailed, I guess, policy or breakdown of what they're looking to do and what they're looking to accomplish. And we have to remember, this year is just the just the footwork to get it off the ground so that they can, I guess, look to get more money from the provincial and federal government. So as a municipality, I think it's our obligation to back them and support them. And I, for one, am willing to do so.
Okay, thanks, Deputy Warden. Councillor Melanie Sampson?
My thoughts were a little similar to Councillor Brent Sampson in that it's a fairly large chunk of money without a presentation, to be honest.
Yep.
And although, you know, they do have a description of their plan, it's actually, you know, I just feel like I'd like to hear from them. So I know that we do have our presentations booked quite far in advance, but I guess I would wonder when maybe if we'd look to Yvonne to find out when we may be able to fit them in, and hope that would work for them. Like, I can appreciate that it's time sensitive, but I guess to that note, I would say if they put in the application previously and knew they needed that, like, this is the first that we're hearing of it, I guess, so.
Yeah, I think too, we need to keep in mind that the maximum contribution on this category is $10,000, not, you know, so the 20, you know, it's still a lot for sure, but even under our current policy, the grant, we couldn't support them for the full ask. Okay, I got a list here. Dawn, I think that's you.
Yeah, so in answering Melanie, Councillor Sampson's point, there is an opening at the November 8th Committee of the Whole meeting. We have one presenter scheduled right now.
Okay, thanks, Dawn. There was a list there of other folks wanting to make comment, are we? Okay. So in this case where, you know, I guess my feeling, and I'm sort of speaking with my council, you know, district councillor hat on here, my feeling is that I would like to see a show of support. You know, for this particular application, although not at the level that's being certainly requested. So, because I think, you know, to your point, Councillors Sampson, would be great to have maybe a presentation, and I do think, you know, maybe there's going to be a next phase to this. We don't know. I think we can't assume, but. You know, so I guess from procedurally, you know, I'd be willing to relinquish the chair and make a motion for a lesser amount if the deputy warden would be willing to step in and chair. Okay. Switch.
Oh yeah, this should be entertaining.
So the red button is there.
All right, so we have, I guess we have a motion or
No, so.
no. So somebody like to make a motion to entertain the.
Thank you. So, $5,000, 2,500 to come from the regional general health, and 2,500 from the District 4 district fund.
So we have a motion on the table for 2,500 from the regional fund and 2,500 from the District 4.
And maybe I'll just add, and also I would like to see that invitation extended from council for them to present in November as well.
So maybe before you extend the 2,500 from the District 4 fund, maybe we can go around and see if any of the other districts are interested in, I guess, supporting the. So maybe I'll start with, I guess, to your right, Councillor Sean Sampson.
That's me, I think, now.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
we'll
no,
go to Councillor. We'll go to Councillor
yeah,
Brent Sampson.
Yeah, no, my only concern with that is I wouldn't be opposed to the full amount possibly if we were able to look at it maybe in a different way. We maybe, like, not through the grant program, obviously, but on a larger scale. So, I don't know, does this 5,000, do you think that will trigger enough support to get the ball rolling on it? Because I don't want to shortchange them ultimately when it might be a great project, right?
Thank you, Deputy Warden. So I think this wouldn't necessarily shortchange. I'm sure if we said, yes, we'd love to give you 20,000, you know what I mean? I'm sure that would be the preferred response. At this stage of the game, I think timing is becoming rather urgent for them. And so, you know, I think that's why I would be more comfortable funding right now at a lesser amount. I don't know. I can't assume that they are going to come back at an infrastructure point. You know what I mean? If there's, once the plan is developed, and look for additional funding. So, you know, if that does happen, that's when I think that, like, to your point, Councillor Brent Sampson, other ways to fund this might be considered, because it will become an infrastructure project if they do return with an ask. So that's my current feeling on it, from talking to the applicants, I should say.
So when, in talking to the applicants, they're, you know, obviously their wish would be a big number, but they would be happy with whatever, and they have a plan to access other funds?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so then I would be prepared to second that motion.
So, I know we had a motion on the table for the 2,500 regional, or from our, and 2,500 from District 4, but I believe the question prior to that was, is there any other districts interested or willing to add on instead of all the funding coming from District 4?
Yeah, I'd be willing to add 500 from the District 5 fund.
I feel like I'm doing an auction, so there's 500 from the District 5 fund.
I feel like I could put in 500 there as well.
And for me, I said from the get-go, what's good for Richmond County is good for all districts, right? So, no, and we just gained 250 earlier on in the evening, so I'll be okay with 500 for my district fund as well.
Yeah, and I as well have no problem there, no issues. I always said that, you know, we don't just run for a district, we run for all of Richmond County. So what's good for one is good for all, same as Councillor Sean Sampson. So I think we have consensus on the 4 other districts giving the $500 each, and then Madam Warden, you can stay, you know, you can, I guess, go with the 500 to create the 2,500 plus the 2,500 from our, to make 5,000, and
So, oh, yeah,
we're both lit up.
Pardon me?
We're both lit up.
Oh, yeah, how's that gonna work?
Maybe before, just my assumption was actually that what would happen would be that the warden would contribute 2,500 from her fund, we do 2,500 from the main fund, and then 500 from the rest of us for a total of 7. So that was what I understood was happening, but I'll let her correct me if I'm wrong.
That's what I understood as well.
So can I entertain a motion for the,
So we do have a motion that was made and seconded for the 5,000, so we probably need to defeat that one. No? We can amend it, okay. So we'll amend that motion. And so the motion would be for $2,500 from the general health fund, as then $2,500 from District 4, and then $500 each from districts 1, 2, 3, and 5, for a total of $7,000.
Correct.
That is the motion I'm making.
And as the seconder to the original motion, I accept that amendment.
so we have a motion on the floor? Any errors or omissions?
Oh, sorry, I'll call for the question.
Question?
Yes.
Question has been called. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Now I'll relinquish the seat back to the warden.
All right, thanks for the discussion, everyone. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is Clint Sampson regarding the Michelle Demers Kennedy property damaged by fire, AAN 013633808. So, Clint, sorry, go ahead, Don.
So, yeah, so the request came from our revenue manager, and it's in line with our policy, tax reduction due to fire. So all the proper documentation is there, and he's recommending a tax write-off for this particular account of $298.84, and that of course represents taxes on the dwelling from August 21st, 2020 to March 31st, 2022.
Okay. Thank you, Don. Councillor Brent Sampson?
I'd be willing to make that motion to write off those property taxes.
Thank you, Councillor Brent. Could I have a seconder on that? Deputy Warden?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Okay, back over to you, Don.
So the second property damage due to fire from our revenue manager is property assessed to Elisa LeBlanc. It appears fire was, taxes in the amount of $284.37 represent the taxes on the dwelling from July 8th, 2021 to March 31st, 2022. And all the documentation is here.
All right, so could I have a motion to accept that recommendation? Deputy Warden?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to accept the recommendation.
Okay, Councillor Melanie Sampson?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. All right, so the next item on the agenda is over to Jason Martell regarding temporary borrowing resolution for the St. Peters and District Volunteer Fire Department. Jason?
Thank you, Warden. In your package, there is a memo from myself to the CAO, and there is a temporary borrowing resolution attached, and it's from the St. Peters and District Volunteer Fire Department, and they're looking for council to approve what we call a TBR in the amount of no more than $300,000, and it's to purchase a 2021 Ford F550 4x4 with a TriStar 12-foot custom aluminum rescue body. So this may be the first TBR of this council. So basically how it works is that any borrowing that the fire departments would want to do has to be ultimately approved by council. And once council approves the temporary borrowing resolution, then it would be signed by the clerk and sent off to be reviewed and signed by the Minister of Municipal Affairs. And once they would sign off on it, then that would give myself the authority to enter into the loan for the fire department to go ahead and purchase the truck. So it's just mostly a formality in the past for council to approve it.
Okay. Thanks, Jason. Councillor Brent Sampson?
I guess seeing as the counselor for District 4 can't make the motion, I'd be willing to make that motion.
Thank you. It's so much easier than switching chairs, right? Thank you. Councillor Melanie Sampson?
Geographically, I'm the next closest, so I will second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on that item? Deputy Warden?
Yeah, so the only question I would have on that item is, obviously, they got a quote to, is that how that works? Do we get a quote from the building, or do they just pick a number that is?
No, the paperwork is attached in your package.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Deputy Warden, did you have another comment? Okay, great. Okay. So any further discussion on that?
Question?
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. Thank you very much. All right, so next item on the agenda is the review of checks issued. So, you know, we're not going to go through this list. Obviously, this is just a sort of information piece on the agenda. Does any councillors have questions on the checks listed or listed for this month or previous months? So, Councillor Sean Sampson.
Yeah, for me, I had a resident bring up all the different, what seems to be cell phones and phone and communication checks. So Bell Alliant, Eastlink, Bell Mobility, TELUS, all that stuff, right? So I had a resident ask why we weren't just using one provider for all that stuff and what all those checks were for, right?
Okay. Maybe I'll ask Don to respond to that.
So we do have some functions, for example, TELUS that only provides us with a certain ability to provide a service for, say, the trucks or GPS. So we have to go with that provider. Eastlink, I think Eastlink is our main provider of the internet, and I believe the lines coming into this building, so we have them. The cell phones, we obviously go with the cheapest package that we could possibly acquire through checking prices. So that would provide us with that response with respect to cell phones. And
Councillor Sampson.
so how many cell phones would that be? Like you're looking at a Bell Mobility invoice of $715.89 and then one of $63.25.
well, we have a Bell line, I believe, at the landfill. They have no internet there, so we have to have that mobility capabilities for different reasons. There also is one at the arena as well, which I think is restricted to, I'm not sure, I think it's Bell as well there, but I'd have to check into it just to confirm that. Are there any others that you're specifically asking for? And that's just knowledge that I have from when I used to pay those bills. To get a better detailed indication of all those accounts, I could put something together for you.
Yeah, if you can, yeah, I'll just send you an email with the touch numbers or whatever, yeah.
Sure.
Yep, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Sampson. Thanks, Don. Deputy Warden, you had a question regarding checks?
I do. So I have, first of all, I would like to acknowledge that that Don returned my message on the check written in April, and it was for a massage gift certificate, I guess is the best way to put it. The other question I still have that's of concern is the one that was in March, for March 11th, to Seaside Massage Therapy, and it was for $80 plus tax, which was $92. It stated that it was for travel and setup cost. So, I guess the question I'm asking for my constituent is, why are we paying travel and setup costs for, or what does that fall under?
As I indicated in my memo to you quite some time ago, it was for expenses related to the health and wellness program in the county, budgeted amount that was provided by council through the budget process. Now that would have been for year ending 2020, March 31st, 2021. So I don't believe that we were over budget, so I can't see that there being any kind of an issue with the amount of money that we spent in relation to that expense.
Yeah, so I guess I just reviewed the workplace wellness policy, and I was just trying to find a spot where it indicated that we cover the cost for massages or for any other, I guess, any other therapeutic, whether it be
On-site, you mean?
on site, as opposed to, I know our each employee is covered with our insurance provider. However, to cover an additional cost on site, I didn't see anywhere where that was, I guess, part of the workplace wellness policy.
Okay, thanks, Deputy Warden. Don?
So once the amount is budgeted, spending of that money is at our discretion. In this case, at my discretion. So it doesn't have to specifically fall on a particular line in the wellness policy. If we feel that it contributes to wellness, then we can expend the money.
Okay, thanks, Don. Deputy Warden?
Yeah, so I guess maybe it's something that we can refer to, I guess, budget and
Oh, you mean policy and bylaw?
policy and bylaw committee.
To do a review of...
To do a review of the way it's maybe established. I guess in the intern, when I read it, it's one of my questions would be, I guess, it says there's a board, so I guess the question I would have would be who's the board made up of? The next one, it says that it meets regularly. It brings amendments if required and provides annual progress update to council. So it was initiated in February 24th, or approved by the previous council in February 24th, 2020. However, I personally haven't seen any updates or annual progress reports or anything to the intern.
Okay, so at this point, then you're requesting we refer this to policy and bylaw for a review? Is like...
Please.
Okay. Okay, so I guess we would need a motion to that effect. Councillor Sampson?
Yeah, so I guess that goes back to like earlier in the agenda, Madam Warden, when you spoke about committee and report documentation.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what sticks out to me when I go back to this agenda where you speak about, reporting of committees and departments, right? So, like the Deputy Warden said, maybe there was no update on this policy or Health and Wellness Fund. So maybe that, that goes back to what you said earlier, right? Maybe we need some more documentation reporting on these committees, right? So
Okay.
I would second that motion, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Sean? I don't think we actually had a motion, so that is you making the motion? Okay.
I think you just have to refer to a bylaw and policy committee
Okay.
meeting, right? So,
Okay.
yeah.
Don, I've seen you light up there a couple times.
So I'm not sure if that's a discussion that we should be having during review of checks. I think it maybe because that's what was added to the agenda at the very beginning of the meeting, review of wellness policy. So I'm not really sure how that works right now.
Sorry, I'm just gonna, Deputy Warden, I want to acknowledge Councillor Brant Sampson.
I'd just like to make a motion to approve the checks.
Oh, we don't usually make a motion, I don't think, to that effect. This is just purely for review, but thank you. Okay. All right. So yeah. So if there's a I guess a motion you'd like to make regarding wellness policy, maybe we could just leave that to the last agenda item that was added. Sure. Was that okay? Great. All right. Any other questions about checks? Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the review of action items from September 13th, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting, and thanks to staff for putting this together. I think this is maybe the first time we've seen this on the agenda, and so you'll note that the action items are included with a status update marked as complete, and I think the agreement was that until an item was marked as complete, then it would just continue to be on the list of action items so that councillors would know kind of where things are at, and it's sort of a little bit of certainly for myself as often the writer of letters and stuff like that, it's very helpful in terms of making sure that we're not losing any of those pieces. Any questions on the review of action items? Councillor Melanie Sampson?
I didn't see, at one point I know we were talking about, ceremonial flag raising, reaching out to Indigenous communities. I didn't see it on the list of action items, and I don't recall it, either of those things being completed.
Yeah, so I feel like that might have been from a meeting before, was it? That was from the June meeting?
Yes, so that's just recommended to council.
Yeah.
So that is complete because it went on the committee of the whole report. So as of the committee of the whole, the only action was for it to go on the report to council. So on the council meeting, when you see the action items, you're gonna see those items pending.
Right.
Gotcha. Yeah. Great.
Right, it's a timing thing, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, thank you, Councillor Melanie. Okay, so if there's no further questions on action items, items added to the agenda include an announcement regarding hockey. So I think Deputy Warden, that was your addition?
It is, yeah, thank you. I'm going to open up it up and read it as it was just sent to me. October 18th, starting at 7 p.m. at the Richmond Arena. The purpose of the meeting is to see if there is enough interest in the area to start an under 35 league. I know our recreation director is involved as well, but again, on Monday, October the 18th at 7 o'clock at the Richmond Arena, there will be a meeting, and the purpose is to find out from all the under 35 adults if they're interested in starting an additional hockey league.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks for that. Good to spread the word. Any questions for the Deputy Warden on that? Okay, so I'm going to move us on to the next item on our agenda, which is the security and monitoring of the website. So, Deputy Warden?
Yeah, so I guess I had two issues that I ran into. One back in July 17th, and it was only brought to my attention because it was a constituent in my district. So there was a comment made on the Facebook page of the county Facebook page by Councillor Sampson, or question. There was a follow-up question asked by a councillor in my district, and then when Councillor Sampson went to reply, both questions were removed from the Facebook page, and Councillor Sampson was blocked from replying.
So I think we had talked about that.
Councillor Sean Sampson, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Melanie and Brent, I didn't
Yeah, and I mean, when a comment is removed, it's not like no one's actively doing a block there, right? It's just that there's nothing to comment on, right? And so that's would explain that. But as to the rest, I'm not sure. Okay.
So I guess that was number one. The second one was on September 29th. I'm not sure if all councillors were aware, but there was a posting on our municipal page that there was a position for a full-time municipal clerk that was posted on our page. And I guess my question is, is this something that we can have our CAO check with our IT specialist to find out on boat matters? I guess who would have control over the posting?
Okay, good, Don?
Just a little update on that. The first incident that you explained, I have no knowledge of that. The second one, it was picked up rather quickly. There was no explanation as to why it was put there or how it got there. I think I did send something to the warden just to let her know that after a request from her, that it was definitely an error or some sort of infringement. We did notify our IT person, and he did, I believe, send a note to Facebook to find out, to get further information on it.
We haven't heard anything back yet? Have we, or?
No.
Okay. All right.
I don't know how long those, the turnaround time is for those types of requests.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm not really
I don't
sure, so.
and I guess with regards to the Facebook page, it's not like a former employee would have an access to a password, or you know what I mean, like that type. That's not how it works. You're listed as an administrator on a Facebook page, and so it would be up to the county to remove administrators if a person no longer works here. So I'm not, as long as, I guess to your point, Deputy Warden, as long as we're making sure, and someone on staff is responsible for ensuring that our administrators are up to date, then I think we could have some confidence that that won't happen again. But I would be interested in hearing back from Facebook, I guess, once we have a response, for sure. Deputy Warden?
Yeah, I as well would like to know where it come from. Obviously, if they can penetrate the walls of the County of Richmond Facebook account once, they can do it twice. So my concern is if all they did was a simple posting, which did get removed very quickly. I agree. However, it did go out to the public very quickly as well, because some are just sitting watching it, because it was sent to me, so that's why I know that it went out. So again, I would be very interested in to find out how, why, and how we make sure that it doesn't happen again, I guess is the...
Okay. Councillor Sean Sampson?
Yeah, CEO Marshall, when it comes to the initial topic that Deputy Warden brought up on July 17th, yeah, so at the end of it, Madam Warren, you said, that happens with Facebook because there's no comments there or whatever, but that wasn't the reality of the situation.
Okay.
The situation was that I had commented and asked a question about a recreation situation. And when this resident in Mike's district asked me a follow-up question to my question, I went to reply to his question. And got a response that I was blocked from commenting any further on this website.
On the Facebook page?
Yes. Yeah.
Or on
So my question was taken off. His question was taken off.
Okay.
And I wasn't allowed to comment any further.
Okay.
So.
Don, did you want to comment?
I guess I can look into it and see what in fact.
Oh, sorry.
I don't have any recollection of that. I was not notified of anything that happened. So I mean, what would you like to see happen?
I don't know. That's.
I guess I would suggest that if you're noticing oddities like that happening on the Facebook page, maybe, definitely report it. And I think if we report it in real time, we might be better able to get.
No, it had nothing to do with council and so. No,
Okay.
That's why I didn't bring it to your attention though.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
All right.
it's dead in the water.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so any further questions on that? Okay, so the next item on the agenda is wellness policy review, and I think this is where you're seeking a motion to, am I correct, Deputy Warden, a motion to refer wellness policy review to bylaw and policy committee?
Correct, and I guess maybe, that would be the motion I would have, but before I make that motion, I would, I guess one of the things that maybe we can be informed of is, maybe who sits on that committee or who makes up the wellness, because it wasn't a committee or something that we've created. It was one in the past that was created just prior to us getting here. So it'd be nice to, it'd be nice to see who sits on that committee. How often does that committee meet? Is there a budget for that committee? And I think
Yes, we approve it.
one of the questions I guess I have is on the bottom of the wellness subsidy funding program. It says that the maximum amount available per individual employee is $2,000. The repayment plan will not exceed 36 months. So my understanding to that would be if an employee wanted to purchase, let's say, gym equipment for their home, they could use the funding and then pay it back within 36 months. I guess my other question to that would be if an employee is looking to get a massage or something, does that also cover to pay back within 36 months? Or any other personal, or does that just cover like a home type scenario?
Okay.
So,
Don?
equipment, I think that it refers to equipment, not service.
No.
Well, I don't think that massages would qualify under that plan, and,
It doesn't refer to anything, sorry.
well, I think isn't it equipment that?
So
that
it says
refers to?
employees will be able to purchase eligible wellness products / services. So again, approved by the wellness committee, which you stated that a service would have been a massage.
Well,
so I'm
no,
just-
I think the service, aspect of it would be gym memberships, where we're eligible for a 50% increase, refund to a maximum of $250.
Okay. So I think basically, what I'm hearing is that there's still maybe some confusion as to how the policy works and how it's applied. So if we refer to policy and bylaw, is that
Yeah,
the
that would be
best
great.
place for us to kind of maybe just get a rundown from staff on how it's being applied and the mechanics of it so we understand it better? Okay, so would you like to make a motion to refer to policy and bylaw?
So I would like to make a motion to refer to policy and bylaw, please.
Okay, thank you. Could I get a seconder on that? Counselor Sean Sampson?
Yeah, I'll second that motion, yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion?
So the
Councilor Miller?
referral is simply for us to just review the policy to get a better understanding of it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, so all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so it's 9:15, and we're moving in 9:45. It's so 9:45. We're moving into our 15-minute question period. So this is not restricted to items on the agenda. And the phone number was updated for members of the public who may wish to call in with their questions. So the phone number is 902-226-9885. We have not too many people in the gallery here with us this evening, so and they don't look like they're going to ask us any questions. So maybe we'll just give it a minute for people to dial in if they so choose. So we're going to need some background music for this portion of the agenda. Just the waiting. Yeah, something. That's right. Okay. All right, so I'm not hearing the phone ringing. I'm not seeing any folks in the gallery asking any questions, and so I'll call that portion of the agenda closed, and we will need a motion to head in camera for personnel discussion. So before we have a motion, I guess, to do that, I think, councillors, could we agree to take a couple-minute break just to allow tell-ill and maybe a little bio break and all that good stuff. So, all right, so could I have, well, actually, maybe we'll recess now and, or do the motion first. Yeah, okay. All right, could I have a motion to move us in camera, please? Councillor Brent Sampson.
I'll make a motion to move us in camera after a 5-minute recess.
Okay, thank you. He's very clear about that. Okay. Could I have a seconder on that motion?
I will second that.
All right, thank you, Councillor Melanie. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. So thanks, everyone. We'll take a 5-minute break.